Hello, I'm Chewy the Big Black Dog, and this will be a full commentary of an Octopath Traveler 2 All Extra Battles Speedrun. If you haven't heard of the game before, it's a JRPG made by Square Enix. There's 8 protagonists, each with their own story. It's a sequel to the original Octopath Traveler and is basically an improvement in every way. The game looks great, has a fantastic soundtrack, and a surprisingly deep battle system. For the All Extra Battles category, the goal of the run is to fully complete the Extra Battles mode by clearing the 4 bosses within it. This mode was added into the game about a year after launch, and the 4 fights are extremely difficult, especially the last 2. To unlock the mode, I will need to beat the final boss of the game, and to unlock that I'll need to clear all 8 characters' stories. But that's enough about the run, let's get into it.
I take what I want.
So to begin, we're going to pick Thron&e as our starting character, and right immediately I'm going to explain the battle system, because we get right into the fight. So the 2 main mechanics of this game are breaking and boosting. So you can notice the shield points on the enemies, and if I hit them with their weaknesses, in this case dagger or axe, they break. If broken, they take double damage, and boost some attacks too. So now boosting, actually I'll just describe breaking a little bit more. So essentially, while an enemy is broken, they will take double damage from all sources. It doesn't matter if they're weak to those sources or not, they just take double damage in general. And if you're trying to run the fight, you can run 100% of the time. So now we're going to get into our second fight, and I can kind of explain boosting as well. So this second fight actually is kind of technical. Basically, we'll do it in 2 turns. The first turn will basically be spent breaking and weakening the enemies, and the second turn will be them. So look in the top right, those orange dots are boost points. 1 every turn, as long as you didn't spend one on the previous turn. And you can use boost points to power up your attacks by 4 times or deal more damage. The skill is, so we're going to be boosting attacks with the extra damage. And just through this. And that's the first 2 fights. Sorry if it was that quick, but yeah. So now I can actually start talking about what this kind of is. So this is our character's first chapter. And basically just intro, some story stuff, and kind of a tutorial for the game's mechanics. We already kind of missed one of them because I was too busy talking about the battle system, but I'll get into that later. But essentially, one of the main mechanics of this game are called path actions. And effectively, each character has 2 of them, one during the day and one at night, and they're how you kind of interact with NPCs. Thron&e, being a thief, one of her path actions is the ability to steal items from NPCs, and that's an example. And immediately after this cutscene here, this is our tutorial on stealing. So now we have to steal a disguise to progress with the story, but obviously stealing items is pretty useful, as you'd expect. So we're going to go here and steal some soul stones. So soul stones are basically this game's equivalent of a damaging item. So I'm not too much of an RPG guy, but yeah, it's basically you can throw them, they'll do elemental damage, and it's fixed damage. So these soul stones we're stealing will do 200 damage base, which is very good. We're going to buy an earring from that shop, that'll be relevant later. And now we're just going to head into the mansion, which will be the area where we'll fight Thron&e's first boss. So now this is a tutorial for Thron&e's ambush path action, which is a nighttime path action, which basically I can just knock someone out at night. That one requires a certain level. Also, speaking of path actions, they usually improve by level. Okay, so right here I'm going to break this guy and then run away, because breaking gives you an 100% fleet chance. And one thing you might have saw in that fight is that I actually got some buffs. So Thron&e has a passive ability, basically, that gives me basically a free attack buff and speed buff at night. So in this fight, I'm going to start off by using those buffs to deal some extra damage with a dark attack. Boost the dark attack for extra damage. And now I'm just going to break the boss and deal some damage with those soul stones we stole. I don't have an attack buff anymore, I didn't decide to buy it. But as you can probably expect, since you have to beat all the character stories, the route for this run is very based off of 20%. But yeah, in this fight, I got bad turnover here, so I actually had to heal. If you get good turnover here, you actually don't need to heal there, but whatever, it's fine. Now this is the introduction to latent powers. You probably didn't see it there, but I used Thron&e's latent power, which gives you a second turn. You kind of charge those by either taking damage or breaking enemies. You can also use like items for it, but that's later. And that's the first boss. This game, early game, is really fast paced. Sorry for that. But essentially, latent powers will be a pretty big key in this run. Well, they won't be used too much, but the times they will be used will be very, very important. So each character has their own latent power effect. Thron&e's latent power gives her a second turn, which is, as you can expect, extremely strong. Also, right there you saw I surprised the enemy. If you surprise an enemy, you have a guaranteed runaway, which is very fortunate there, because with 2 enemies, I can't really break both of them to get a free runaway. So now I'm just kind of exploring around, and as you can see I'm walking. There's actually a point to walking. If you're walking, you get fewer encounters compared to if you're running. And basically we're going to be grabbing areas because there's a fast travel system in this game, and a big fast travel. Okay, so that enemy right there is a Kate. It drops a lot of XP and JP if I kill it, but I'm unfortunately not able to kill it because it has really high evasion and takes reduced damage from every attack. So, while it would have been nice, I can't kill it. So, I just kind of ran away from it. So now we're on the way to pick up our second character, who will be Oswald. Oswald is a scholar, and the reason we go for Oswald immediately is because the scholar has a support skill. So support skills are a mechanic, where as you learn skills, you can get equipable passive skills that you can equip to your characters. And one of the scholar's passives reduces the amount of random encounters you get, which, as you can expect for a speedrun, is very, very strong. So, the early game of this run is basically, how can we get evasive maneuvers as quickly as possible? Oh yeah, that's the skill. So, right here in this town, we can just use Oswald's path action now, which is Mug. Mug lets him fight someone, and if he wins, he gets a take item. So I'm just going to kill this guy with an ice spell to break him, fire spell to kill him. Very rarely you can actually miss that kill. It's technically a damage range, but it doesn't happen too much. And if it does happen, you just whack with your staff and he dies. So now we're going to go to the black market. So the black market, there is basically every night there is you can get like a random set of NPCs. These clerics here are what I want, and it's a 15% chance. Unfortunately, I got an encounter, which is pretty unfortunate. But essentially, what was I trying to say? Black market. But the black market lets you buy soul stones, and soul stones are very, very. Or rather, these clerics sell soul stones. So we're gonna stock up with soul stones, which is how we're gonna deal with enemies for the early game of the run. And that's basically it. So now we're going to head to a town called Trebuhopu, because that is a very convenient place for us to use our soul stones and grind up some JP. So we'll now actually just talk about what XP and JP are. So the main rewards from battle are XP and JP. Experience points are XP is experience points, how you level up. JP is job points, is how you learn your skills. For the most of this run, JP is going to be more impactful than SP or than XP. So we're going to head to this town, and on the way there, walking here just so we get fewer encounters. And I might as well at this point kind of tell why Thron&e is such a good starter for the speedrun. So not only is her chapter 1 pretty fast, and she's really close to Oswald, but that night buff that I kind of mentioned, those free attack buffs you get at night, are really, really useful.
And so it goes.
And we just use our soul stone to kill the encounter, because that's what it is, basically. So, I'm going to do a safety save here. If I was, like, really, really going for record, I probably wouldn't take that safety save, but I was on good pace because I got a really lucky black market. So, I just decided to take the safety save just in case. And here I actually get a bad encounter. Get a good encounter here, you can learn evasive maneuvers right after this encounter here. But I got a bad one. I don't know the exact odds. I want to say it's around 2 and 3 to get a good encounter, but I'm actually sure I should check this at some point. And the backup is just going up there to that chest, grabbing an extra soul stone, and fighting another encounter and killing it. The safety save is nice, because if you happen to die to one of those encounters, the safety save guarantees that the next encounter you're going to get is actually a good one, which is nice. So we're just going to learn some skills here. I almost learned the wrong skill. Fortunately, I didn't. But now we have evasive maneuvers. So basically, you unlock support skills as you learn more and more skills in a job. And now we've gone to Trokuhopu, and there's no actual reason we need to come here right now, but it's just convenient to get the JP there. And now we're going to fast travel to the harbor, which you can actually do. Some casual players may have missed that. And now we're going to take the ship over to the other continent. So now we're going to kind of just explore the early game areas, pick up some more characters, and tag some towns. And on the way, I'm going to be breaking enemies to charge up Thron&e's late power. So that guy there, I can break him with sword. One kind of skill you kind of need to learn as a runner of this is for these early encounters, what are they weak to so you can break them. And more importantly, which encounters can you actually not break? I want to say there's one encounter you can get where you just straight up can't break it in the on the way to Trokuhopu. But that's besides the point. So now we're heading to this town here called Cropdale, and in here there is a guy we can scrutinize, which is Oswald's other path action. And we first tried it. That was a 50% chance, by the way. You can try it a bunch of times. If you fail so Scrutinize is basically a path action where, like Steal, it has a % chance of working. The % chance goes up as you level. And we basically just scrutinize that guy, got some info on how to cook grapes, which will use in a side quest later. And essentially, that side quest is going to give us some early money, which is going to be pretty useful. And so on this screen here, we're just going to walk again. So a lot of screens where... So in this game, in the first game, if you ran with evasive maneuvers, it was just as efficient as if you walked, so you always ran everywhere because it was faster. But in this game, it's actually just as efficient if you decide to... Or rather, sorry, it's more efficient in terms of the amount of encounters you get to walk. So if you want to skip an encounter, you'll often see me walking. So I walked for a little bit there, and then I ran for the rest of it. So now we're going to pick up our third character. This will be Partitio. And Partitio is a merchant, and as you will see kinda soon, merchant is a really broken job in this game. The entire, first hour or so of the run is just going to be merchant being incredibly, incredibly broken. So I actually make a mistake here, and I get punished for it. On this screen, I'm supposed to walk this entire screen, because if you walk this entire screen, you get a battle. But I run for a bit, and I get punished, I get a battle, and...
Let's play.
Yeah.
Ready?
There'll be a few kind of small mistakes in this run. It's a 3.5 hours... Not quite 3.5 hours, but, it's a bit over 3 hours long. You're gonna make mistakes, so it kind of comes down to... Make sure that you aren't making really bad mistakes, and try and keep your focus up so you make as little mistakes as possible, and or know how to recover from your mistakes. So in that case, I just ran. So I'm walking here to skip the encounter, and we're going to pick up our next character, which will be Hikari. Hikari is a warrior, and the warrior job isn't going to be that useful in this run, but it will help a little bit. But the main reason we want Hikari, actually, is because his second chapter will unlock a really good item for this run. So the early game of this run, after getting evasive maneuvers, is basically, we need to complete Hikari's chapter 2 as soon as we can. So these 4 here are basically our early game party, and stick with us at least until Hikari's chapter 2 is complete, which will be around 30 minutes in the run. So we got Thron&e. Oh right, I also kind of forgot to mention a little bit the reasons why we have Thron&e as a starting character. And that is, one of the mechanics of this game is that until you complete their story, your starting character is locked into the party. And because of Thron&e's buffs, she's just really valuable to have at all times. Also, these fish here we can just break with an Oswald skill. If I got a different encounter there, you can still break them. It depends on which one you get, but from my experiences doing runs, you can basically always pretty much consistently just break one of them, or break the encounter and flee. And it's pretty fast. So now we're heading into an area which is a bit higher level. We'll want to actually kill things in here, so we're going to use a soul stone, and this is another cave, and this time, since we're using a soul stone, we can kill it. And as you notice, we just got about 460 JP this encounter normally gives around 80. So the extra JP will let us save time later, which is incredibly nice. The other thing that it lets us do is the Kate also drops a ton of money. So normally we get 10,000 by turning in a quest on the way to this town. Like, it's the quest reward for learning how to grow grapes that we got a while ago. But in this run, I was kind of like, hey, we have the extra money, so I can just skip that quest for now. I'll do it later. Though, thinking about it now, I think the better option is to... If I were to get the Kate again, the better play is to still pick up the quest now, and then skip another bit of money later. But I think I still handled it in a decent way. Anyway, so with this town now, we're going to head down, we're going to steal a soulstone. This will be a large soulstone. I kind of forgot to mention how much damage the medium soulstone did. So whether the small soulstone does 200 damage, medium does 1100, and the large one we just picked up does 2,700, which is quite a lot. So now we're going to go pick up our next character, which is Cassie, but I already kind of mentioned we already kind of have our early game party set in stone, so we're not actually going to add her to the party, we're just going to pick her up. So we can play with her, we can have her in the party later, basically. We'll need to pick up everyone because we need to do their stories anyway, so yeah. Another thing that is new to this game compared to the first game is you can actually skip characters' chapter 1s, which is very, very useful. You can just go up to the character, you can say no to doing your chapter 1, and you actually can you don't even need to do it later for this run. Like, even though we need to beat all the stories, we basically can skip the chapter 1 of every character except the one we started with, which is quite useful.
What to do?
So, on this encounter, I fail to run away, and then I assume it's weak to spear, and it's not, so I just have to run away again, and I fail again, so, not great. But hey, third time's the charm, I guess. So now we're going to go and pick up the inventor job. So there's a system in this game where you can equip a second job to characters, and you can get the base 8 jobs as secondary jobs, but you can also get 4 secret jobs. The inventor is one of the secret jobs. And basically, they have kind of unique skills that you can't get anywhere else. And the inventor works differently because instead of learning the skills with JP, you have to craft them. And that's what we need those earrings for. So we bought one in Albrine and picked up Cassie. We bought the other one right at the start on Thron&e, and that lets us craft 2 inventions. And we have just gotten, while the inventions are going to be useful, the main reason we do that is because it gives the best support skill in the game. We just got a support skill called a step ahead, and we're going to equip it really soon. Normally you'd equip it a little earlier, but it doesn't actually matter when you do it, as long as you do it. So a step ahead basically gives you a free turn for that character at the start of any fight, which is completely ridiculous. Because especially in a speedrun, we're going to be killing basically every battle in 2 to 3 turns. And having one of those turns just be for free before the enemy gets to do anything is insanely insane. And we are going to be using it in literally every fight we get into, which is, it's pretty self-explanatory. Free turns is good. So now we're starting Partitio's Chapter 2. And why we're doing Partitio's Chapter 2 is that we don't actually... Not only is it on the way to Hikari's Chapter 2, but it also will give us the money we need to do the... Because the thing we need to get after Hikari Chapter 2 is from a quest, and we'll need money to complete that quest, so this chapter will give us the money we need. Which is pretty nice. So we're just going to do some basic kind of story stuff. If this was, say, a marathon run, this would be a decent spot for a donation or two. So, as you might expect, the route for this run is very based off of any percent, because any percent needs to do all character stories and then the final boss. This one needs to do the character stories, the final boss, and then the extra battles. So it's basically any percent plus, or how I like to call it, any percent but actually cool. I have nothing against you if you run any percent, I just think this guy is just any percent but better anyway. So this is, speaking of any percent, this is actually our first major route divergence from any percent. So we're going to go pick up the Thief sub-job, because we'll need it later. Any percent does not need it. If I remember correctly, any percent picks up, I think, 6 total sub-jobs. We're going to be picking up 11 of them. There are 12 total in the game. And now we're going to head over to Acridge, which is another town.
Now it begins.
And the reason we're heading this way is because this is where the Merchant Shrine, the Merchant Guild is located. Guilds are where you pick up secondary jobs, so we just went to the Thieves Guild. So we're going to go to the Merchant Guild to get the Merchant sub-job, because, as I mentioned before, Merchant is broken. So the encounter in this area is actually slightly too difficult for us to kill a regular soulstone, right? Just a medium soulstone. So what we're going to do is break this guy, armor eater him back, and then we can throw a light soulstone and kill everything. And this will still give us just... We're doing this because we still need the JP to learn some skills. Well, technically with the Kate we don't, but I'm still playing this normally. Plus, killing the encounter is safer than... So on this screen, this encounter... Oh right, the encounter. The reason it's this encounter because this is a fixed encounter. Certain screens will have the first encounter always be the same, and this is one of them. So we can just kill that encounter twice, which is kind of whatever. So now we're going to go pick up the Merchant sub-job, and immediately afterward, we're going to get introduced to step count sets. So battles in this, like a lot of other RPGs, are determined by a step count. You basically can take there's a certain amount of steps you can take before you have the chance of getting an encounter. But then, once you take a certain amount of steps, then it'll kind of start giving you a chance to get an encounter. So by challenging that guy with Hikari's path action basically lets him fight someone basically, and then just running away, that actually resets our step count, so we can make it to that town that we can, which is pretty great. And now we're just going to do the final bits of Partitio's chapter 2. We're going to use Partitio's path action, Hire, on this guy. Hire is one of those path actions that lets you get an NPC follower. Usually in this run, that's going to be used for the story, because you'll often need, oh hey, we need to take this guy to do whatever, but... Sorry, I was getting a drink of water. But Hire will have other uses in this run. And now we're actually heading over towards the boss. And before the boss, there is a quick little fight against some guards, which we will just defeat the same way we've been defeating every other encounter with normal enemies, by throwing a soulstone.
For the pride of Ku.
These soulstones are pretty meticulously routed out in this early game. Like, we buy certain types of soulstones that we know will be able to kill the enemies when we need to kill them. So each battle I need to pay attention to which soulstone I want to use and make sure I'm using the right one. So we're going to grab a little money from the chest, and these enemies actually catch us by surprise. Though unlike the other times where we can get caught by surprise by enemies, I was going to say it's not that dangerous, and then Partitio forgot about that. But still not bad. I can still just kill the guys with Higher Soulstone M, and there we go. So now this is actually... I'm doing this job menu differently than I would normally do it. Normally you wouldn't have enough JP to do everything I'm about to do, and you do some of this after the boss, but since I got that Kate, I had so much JP that I could basically do early menu and learn some skills I'll need for later. But seeing that I'm not actually that practiced with this menu, because I haven't done it, like, ever, I don't get the Kate very much, so there was a bit of that was a bit of a slow man. It was fine. Getting the Kate is also the reason I skipped the split on Garnet. I pressed the button to skip the split simply because I know that it would give me a fake time save on the Bandland split, because this is also a pretty major screw-up, and I'm very lucky for this not to go badly. What I should have done here is attack the spear with Thron&e, and now I'm just in thinking, because I'm trying to figure out, can I actually salvage this? Because I was supposed to attack with a spear, because then these attacks from Hikari and Oswald would break the boss. But I didn't have that, and that armor corrosive I set up, which debuffs the boss's defense, didn't even help me. Fortunately, the backup worked. Oswald lived on 6 HP, thank God. The start of this run, I think it was like the first or second run I was doing in that session, so there's a bit of jitters, and yeah, sometimes that happens. But anyway, we defeated the boss, but not before using the Merchant's Collect skill on it to get 30,000. No idea why that dog is that loaded, but it is. And then we killed it with a skill called Hired Help. Hired Help is the reason Merchant is broken. And essentially, Hired Help lets you... It costs money instead of SP, and basically you can pay money and you'll summon mercenaries to do damage for you. And the mercenaries use their own stats, which means you don't need any gear for it to be good. You can just pay money, summon some mercenaries, and have them kill things. So we use the guards option there,
Now it begins.
which is kind of like a mid-costed option that does enough damage that we need. It does enough to kill the encounter. Basically, it does enough to kill those early bosses. Also, sorry if there's a background noise. So we're gonna walk this way to the town because that'll let you skip the. Because I kind of sound like a broken record here, because it'll let us skip the encounter. And now we're just gonna head to Hikari's Chapter 2. And I only now just remembered that because of the... Normally what you would do is you would learn merchant skills on everyone after the Garnet fight, which is the dog I just defeated. You would normally learn the merchant skills after the Garnet fight, but since I had learned them before, that still means I had to do a menu to equip the skills. Anyway, so the passive I just equipped, the notable one I equipped is a passive called Boost Start, which will be incredibly vital in this run. Boost Start basically lets you start any character that has Boost Start equipped, start with about 2 BP instead of 1. So as you can see, every character in our party has 2 BP. And if you didn't quite catch it, you'll see it the next battle. And this is another detour that isn't complete on 90%. This is the Cleric subjob, which, kind of like Thief, is only, it just isn't useful for any percent. Cleric is you think of Cleric as the healer job, and it kind of is, but it also has a really, really good supportive skill that we'll be able to use later on for the end game of the run. Like, the end game just does not work with Cleric. So we're just gonna head on this way and grab a soul stone from that chest and continue on. And oh right, I kind of didn't even mention, but this game has a day-night mechanic. I've been kind of switching. You can switch from day to night with the press of a button, but the time actually also switches manually. So as you see, when you get to this town, it'll actually be night because enough time has passed. But the manual kind of time changes aren't going to be too useful in this run. Most of the time, when you want to change time, we'll just, press the button to change time for us. Normally, we'll want it to be daytime as much as possible because you get more encounters at night. Okay, so now we're going to use Hikari's challenge path action because his Chapter 2 is basically him fighting in an arena. So, we're going to win this. We're going to win this with more soul stones. Because of course we are. So we're going to use a fire soul stone on that guy. So one note about that fire soul stone, if you're running this yourself, is that basically you might have had to use that fire soul stone if you got surprised on the way to this town. If you did, there is an NPC that you would walk by, like the one on the bench right there. They have a medium wind soul stone, and you just buy that using Partitio's purchase path action, and then you could use that soul stone to kill that guy instead. Because the rest of the soul stones that you currently have are just, you can't waste any of them. So then these guys, it's a 3-on-1 fight, which hardly seems fair, so we're also going to cheat by just using a soul stone. And guess what? The soul stone wins
I
instantly.
still have much to learn.
Soul stones are pretty good. Who would have thought? This chapter also introduces us to Hikari's talent. So every character has a passive called a talent. Hikari's is that if he wins a battle against someone using his challenge path action, he can actually learn a skill from them. He can have up to 5 of these skills, and we're actually going to use some of them in the run.
Prepare
So that skill there is Aggressive Slash. Sorry, I'm kind of bouncing back and forth.
for the pride of Ku.
But that skill we used to kill that guy, to break that guy, was Aggressive Slash. It's a sword attack that hits a bunch of times. We boosted it to guarantee it would hit enough times to break him. And we just learned a skill called Slowing Sweep. Slowing Sweep is a spear attack that reduces the enemy's speed. I don't think I had to use it in this next fight. But if you get bad turnover in this next fight, you can reduce the enemy's speed to make them act after you. Which is pretty useful, because this guy's weak to spear.
On your guard.
So now this is kind of the boss, though not quite the boss yet. So we attack him with a spear, attack him 4 times,
My turn.
use our last large soul stone for now, and there he goes. But that isn't the main fight. The main fight is what comes next. And I do say what comes next like it's going to be difficult when we're just going to, break the boss, debuff defense with armor corrosive, and then click the hired help and kill. It's not that complicated.
But I will help now go.
Hired help guards, go, and this.
All tidied up.
So now we've unlocked the quest that we've been kind of waiting all the way in this run to do. So basically, once you've beaten Hikari's Chapter 2, you can go into the arena and fight an NPC named Uranus. And Uranus is very difficult, especially for a one-on-one fight. She has a pretty sizable health total, but I wonder how we're going to kill her with such
You're open.
gear. Oh wait, we can just, hired help. If you get bad turnover in that fight, what you do in that fight is you use Thron&e's latent power to get a second turn, so you basically defend and debuff the boss, and then kill it. Defending makes you act first on the next turn, so that strategy still always works, which is fantastic. And then if you actually had used Thron&e's latent power there, you would have given her that reinforcing jam that you had just dropped, that just got from the fight, which will refill the latent power, which basically ensures that after that fight you'll always have Thron&e's latent power. So what we just got from that fight is a
I
Champion's
take what I
And
want.
Champion's Belt is pretty good. It gives you 100 physical attack and 100 crit, which is fantastic. The stats from that are going to be useful for basically the entire run, but the main reason we get it so early on is because it also makes it so that enemy encounters cannot surprise you anymore, which is incredibly good, because we're going to want to go into some high-level areas early. Also, another any % detour, grab an Apothecary here. Apothecary, again, like Cleric, is going to be used for endgame. And so we just we equipped the Champion's Belt on Thron&e, we picked up Temenos as a character, and Temenos is going to be pretty key to this run, because he has a similar ability to Thron&e, where he gives you a bonus if you're fighting at night, and in Temenos' case, he will debuff the enemies if you're fighting at night, which is very, very good, because we can just do this fight, we don't use armor corrosive anymore, we can just get a free debuff from Temenos, and then just hired help guards and one.
All in a day's work.
So now this is the first time we're going to do something where that's going to be a somewhat common theme in this run. Basically, this chapter wants us to backtrack, but instead of backtracking, we're going to fast travel somewhere else and do something else that we need to do. So in this case, we're going to do Thron&e's Chapter 2. Or one of her Chapter 2s. This game has kind of branching paths. You'll need to complete all branches of the path. It's just that you can do them in whatever order you want, basically. So right then we hired that guy, because Partitio's ability is basically he'll get a passive depending on the guy he has hired. So that guy gives us a bonus where every item we sell will sell for 25% more money, which we'll be using for quite a bit. Maybe not quite a bit, but we'll be getting a lot of value out of it. I think that guy gives us almost 100,000, which is insane, by the way. Maybe he even gives us 100,000. I actually done the math. Have not actually done the math, but it's very valuable. But we're just going to complete this chapter. This chapter actually does not have a boss. Every character has one chapter that doesn't have a boss. This is Thron&e's. And this chapter, basically, Thron&e has to play a drinking game, and one of the drinks is poison, and this is the easiest thing to win casually, because if you look at the other option, the option is literally blood-stained when you hover over it, so it's very obvious which one's the, which one is the poisoned drink. But now we're just going to do Oswald's Chapter 3. Might be wondering where the heck is Chapter 2? Well, Oswald's Chapter 1 doubles as both a Chapter 1 and a Chapter 2. It's kind of weird that way. But, yeah. So, we go straight to Chapter 3. And now in this guard outpost, this is on the way to Oswald's boss, and the enemies here actually have a very useful item that you can steal off of.
Let's play.
Thief has a skill called Steal, lets you steal items from enemies. So basically here, we're going to use Thron&e's latent power to get an extra turn, weaken them with a Thunder Soulstone, and then steal off the steal skill, and then Partitio can just use a small Fire Soulstone. And that just gave us a Forbidden Elixir, which, as I might say often, I'm not sure, is a surprise tool that will help us later. So now this is Stenvar, and this is the second fight we're going to be using the Collect skill to get away from. One thing I didn't mention on Garnet when we use the Collect skill is that it has a 95% chance of working when the enemy's at full HP. So if you miss the Collect, if I was, doing series attempts, it's just straight up a reset. If I was, of course, doing a fun run, I would just save before the boss and reload the save if I failed it. I think in my times running this, I failed it once, which I think is statistically a bit lucky, but whatever. Anyway, we're going to head to Oswald's Chapter 4, and we kind of want to do this because it's going to give us a good amount of XP and JP, which we'll need. Well, not really the XP, but the JP absolutely. So right here, we have to steal an item. That's a Dazzling Artwork with Thron&e, and the Dazzling Artwork is just, it'll sell for a good amount of money later. This chapter is kind of a bit RNG because there's a lot of RNG path action uses, so after that steal, we then have three scrutinizes that we need to do for the story. Fortunately, with a path action where the percent chance, if you fail it, so like we did right there, if you fail a path action percent chance, basically you'll lose reputation in town if you fail it 5 times. So if you fail 5 total times, that would lose time later. It doesn't actually lose time right now. Normally when you lose reputation in a town, you wouldn't be able to do path actions, but path actions you need to do to progress the story are exempt from this. So basically we'd still be able to complete the story, but later on when we need to do some optional path action uses in the town, we wouldn't be able to do it. And right there we actually viewed a travel banter. Travel banters are a nice little, conversation between the characters. It's a nice little character moment. But it actually is good in the speedrun because, just like Hikari's challenge path action, it resets your step count. So we did that to skip an encounter there. And then we just use higher health guards to beat up these guys. One thing that you should be on the lookout if you're running this is you basically want to try and break enemies with Partitio to charge up his latent power, so I made sure to do that with Partitio there. And now we're going to equip Step Ahead because we actually need to use some of our power to defeat this boss. So this boss, we're just going to,
Thinking time.
it requires a bit more from us than our other fights, because it's a kind of a mid-game boss, so it actually has a decent amount of HP. So we're going to break it with our staff hits, and we used an inventor skill called Critical Scope, which makes all attacks crit, which includes hyper. So we use this to hit our first damage cap of 9,990, and then we just use a Soul Stone kill.
Study harder.
We actually won't be hitting the 10,000 damage cap too much in this run, mainly because there's a skill that lets us. There's a passive that'll let us get higher than that. It'll let us raise the damage cap to 100k, and we'll be hitting that again. So we're just doing a quick job menu, basically switching jobs for what we need later. So we're switching Thron&e we're having Thron&e as our inventor, and we're giving Oswald motion, which really is cool. And one of the reasons we're using Inventor right now is simply because of the Catapult skill, which is a pretty strong AoE, and you can basically just have Throna use Catapult and just kill these guys.
I take what I want.
And now we're going to be heading on our way to the town of Merry Hills, which we'll need to go later, and it will help us get some XP and JP, basically. So this is a high-level area. We can't get surprised thanks to the Champion's Belt, and thanks to hired help and that large soulstone we picked up during Oswald's chapter, we'll be able to kill it. Certain encounters here won't actually need the large soulstone to kill, but these monkeys are pretty beefy, so we need the large soulstone to hired help. And hired help with fair and balanced skills always. So on the way to this town, you can actually stop by the town before picking up that item, just for a bit of safety, but I just went for it. And now we're going to head toward Winterbloom, and basically the reason we're heading that way is because that is where we can get the Scholar Guild. And the reason we want the Scholar Guild is because Scholar has evasive maneuvers, and we'd rather not do the entire run with Oswald in our party. We want to kind of switch up our party, because we know we need to do other people's stories, too. Like, I mean, no disrespect to Oswald, but he kind of gets done dirty in this run. Like, if you want to see, like, if you want to see a run where Oswald doesn't get done dirty, watch the Goldberg speedrun. There's a GDQ run of that, that's a pretty good watch. But, yeah, in this run he kind of gets done dirty, but, yeah, what can you do? So, on the way to Winterbloom, we're also going to kill 2 encounters on the screen. One thing you have to be, like, it's kind of a skill you get from learning the game, so I keep it day for most of it, and then switch to night when I know I'm I know an encounter will come soon, so I do the encounter at night, and then I switch back to day so my encounter rate isn't increased, and so on and so forth. So we're going to go grab a Scholar, and then we will be heading into Winterbloom.
Let's play.
And I guess right now I'll just mention something real quick about the category. The person who did most of the routing work for this was actually me. Basically, there's a story to it that I'll probably tell later in this run, but essentially, I completely revamped the route of this category, and basically redid it from scratch, and what's left is something that's just really cool, and I'm really proud of it. Also, that menu was just extremely sloppy. I swear I clicked yes to equip evasive maneuvers, but I guess I didn't, so I had to quit out of the menu by accident, and then had to open up the menu and re-equip it. And now Cassie shows up, because now that we've given Partitio evasive maneuvers, so we don't have to have Oswald, so now we're going to use Cassie for a little bit. And we just completed a quest there. That'll give us gives us another quest item, basically. Buy some Lilies of Light, which will be useful on one fight at the very end of the run. And getting them there is, as far as I know, the best place to get them, basically. Like, the other option is you can, like, steal them. You can, like, steal one and then give Cassie latent power later, but that's, from what I can tell, that's just kind of just slower / more awkward. So I just buy them there. They're pretty cheap anyway. So we're heading to Thron&e's other chapter 2 boss, or Thron&e's other chapter 2. This one happens to have a boss. And as we've kind of been doing our job menus, we've been kind of equipping and unequipping step ahead. Right now, the only person with step ahead is actually Partitio. So that means this will be a one-action fight. Well, that's a little bit of a spoiler, but it'll be a one-action fight, which is Kind of neat. We don't actually have too many of those in this run. Also, I was supposed to use a travel banter a bit earlier than I did there. I just kind of got a bit lucky. I didn't get an encounter. And then we switched to Knight right before the boss because we need our debuffs.
Clean up the filth.
And now we can just use hired help. And this time we're using hired help beastlings, which more damage. They cost twice as much as guards. Actually, I think the bit really costs as much. And they do they do more damage. They also break shields regardless of what the enemy's weak to, which will be very useful later. Almost warped to the wrong spot there. And basically, we are going to learn a few skills here, most notably the Evil Ward passive. Evil Ward, we're equipping the Temenos. It's a very strong passive, and it basically will, from what I can tell, like, it basically doubles your party's level for the purposes of running away from enemies, which is very, very useful, because it basically lets you run from encounters that, in high-level areas. So we're going to head right over to a level 45 area, and we can just run from the encounter. The odds are, I think, probably around, like, even at this low a level, I think it's around, like, from my experience, around 80%. Maybe not. Maybe like 85, I don't know. But, this is not one of those times. So normally you get 2 shots running away. So I fail once here, and I fail again. So, I end up dying to these guys. Fortunately, they are pretty strong, so they can kill me pretty quickly. But, yeah. That can happen. There's 5 encounters that you'll have to run in this run that are in... that you basically, they're in a high-level area, you're low-level, and you have to run from them. So, any one of them, if you fail, oh hey, there's another Kate, that's a chubby Kate. I ran from it, and there was a part of me that regretted it a little bit, like, what if I just killed it and got all the rewards from that? But then I think it was faster to from it. There is a time where getting a chubby Kate in this run is faster, but that was not the time. So here we're going to use Cassie's path action, Soothe. This is her nighttime path action. He basically drugs them to put them to sleep. Which, the ethics are a little bit dubious, but it's useful. So there we picked up the Arms Master job. That was what the quest item of pulling that sword from the stone quest was. We're going to buy some items here, and the Arms Master gave us, repaired the sword, and to pay him back, we're just going to immediately sell it. It's not... I mean, casual players are probably cringing right now, but it's not the speedrunners' fault the developers made the weapons sell for $100,000. If they didn't want us to sell them, they would make them not sell for that much. So selling those weapons is going to be a pretty useful way of getting money early on. So basically the gimmick of the job is that you can only use the skills if you have the weapons equipped. And judging by the fact that I mentioned that we're selling the weapons for money, we aren't really going to use many of the Arms Master skills in this run. Which may come to us as a surprise to some casual players. But yeah, we have other options that don't require us to either go out of the way or give up effectively 100k money. So yeah. And right there is we buy a ship. We need that to complete the run. It's part of Partitio's story, and it helps us get some optional content too, which is very, very useful. You can actually customize the ship. I get a black octopus. Paint the ship black with an octopus on the sail. It's completely, like, it literally changes nothing, but I did it because we might not. Excuse me, sorry. Now this is the second area where we had a risky encounter, so I ran from that one. That one, fortunately, did not kill me. Now I'm going to walk the rest of the screen, because from what I've seen, you kind of need to walk this, or else you will get a second encounter. And, again, the second encounter does have a chance of killing you, just like the first one does. So now we're going to pick up that quest that we were supposed to do all the way back at the beginning of the run. It's not just the money that we need from the quest, it's also this nourishing nut. And I guess this is a good time to explain what nuts are. So nuts are basically consumable items that will permanently increase character stats. They'll be pretty useful in this run, especially for the endgame, and Nourishing Nuts will increase max HP. And we will be using a ton of Nourishing Nuts to turn one of our characters into a tank. We'll need to tank a few hits in the endgame, because we'll be doing most of the bosses hitless in this run, but the final 2 fights of the extra battles are insanely hard, so we will have to be taking some damage. Anyway, thanks to Evil Ward, we can just make some battles free, and I haven't even mentioned, like, the goal for this part of the run, but basically we're trying to complete Partitio's final chapter as soon as we can. Of course, we're not actually taking the most direct route. We've taken a few detours and fought a few other bosses on the way, but we're still basically kind of making a beeline for Partitio's final chapter. And the reason for that is that final chapters in this will unlock various NPCs or items. In this case, it's an NPC. And basically, we're using one of the NPCs that's unlocked in Partitio's final chapter to basically just catapult this run into overdrive. So we're just kind of going on Cassie chapter 3. This is, again, another point. Especially when we're kind of doing story stuff like this, there's a good amount of points in this run where it's like, if this was a marathon run, you could definitely fill the time with just some donations. And, so this chapter has one of my pet peeves about this game's story thing, where they start like an epic music track, but it doesn't continue on into the next area. So they start like oh no, like, Cassie's friend's been captured by this scary monster. We need to go in and save them, and then you go into the cave, it's just a peaceful soundtrack. It's just a peaceful-ish song, and I'm like, why? Anyway, weird rant aside, we're now going to go to, the Sand Lion, which is the boss here. We're losing time here because we got surprised, and, this boss, we are going to, not be using these things this time. We're actually going to be using Higher Health Veteran. It's a bit tankier. There's another one-action kill.
Maybe next time.
Partitio is also great. I love Partitio from just a character perspective. He's got the yeehaw cowboy kind of accent, and he's just a lovely guy who wants to end poverty. Like, what's not to love? Again, we're just finishing up the story chapter, and then afterward, we will be grabbing another sub-job. This one will be Warrior, and this one is grabbed at 80%, because it's incredibly vital for the run. Because I mentioned how there's a passive that'll let you increase the damage cap to 100,000. That passive is from Warrior. So we'll need that later. So now we're just going to doing a few errands with our new ship. So the first one is we're going to go to the shipwreck at the Empress, and this spot's got another one of those weapons we can turn into an Arms Master weapon, which, again, useful. So another risky encounter to run from. We again, don't die. Spoiler alert, we will not die to any of the other encounters that are risky in this run, thank God. I think if I died twice, I'd just die inside, but anyway. Now there's another kind of we're doing another detour here. I did try to move the ship there in time with the music, because why not? And we just got the XP Augmenter. The XP Augmenter will increase the XP we get by 50%, and any percent does not actually grab that. I'll mention the reason why we get it a good bit later, because it's not relevant just yet. And we're actually grabbing Agnia. That's another thing that any percent doesn't normally do. Me forgetting where to go for a little bit. But we're grabbing Agnia early, because on the next kind of little bit of exploration, we need to take Agnia with us, because of something to do, basically. So we're heading towards Partitio's Chapter 3 town, which, And once we get there, we'll obviously want to start that chapter. This screen we can walk for a little bit, and that gives us pretty good odds of getting to the next screen they're getting an encounter, which is very, very nice. And basically just kind of walk, run from encounters, pretty simple stuff. On this screen, I think you can walk, but I've never had any luck skipping or walking. Though I was actually really close to skipping and running there, so if I had walked, I would have skipped the encounter. But, yeah, whatever. So we'll start the chapter, and then we'll just immediately leave the town, because we want to do some more exploration. So the reason we have Agnia in the party here is because of a mechanic in the game called EX skills. So every character in this game has 2 EX skills, and they're basically additions to that character's base job's skills. So for Agnia, that'd be an add-on to her dancer skills. And basically so to get EX skills, there's one of them you learn from a shrine in the world, so we're heading towards the shrine to learn Agnia's EX skill from that. The other one you get from finishing the story. We'll be using there'll be a decent amount of EX skill usage in the run, but this is the only one that we need to go out of the way and get from a shrine. Because the shrines are pretty out of the way. There's, to my knowledge, only 2 speedrun categories that actually go for a shrine EX skill. So there's this one, which gets Windy Refrain, which is a very, very strong skill if you played this game casually, but we will not be using it until the very end of this run. And then the other category is the Galdera category, which the fast route will get Negotiate Schedule, which is a very funny skill and basically lets you buy an enemy's turn. You can basically just pay them money, and then Partitio will take the enemy's turn for them, which is hilarious. Now we're just going to head to Timberrain, and yeah, we're just heading to Timberrain. We need to do some stuff there, including get our 3rd and final Armsmaster weapon of the run, and it will suffer the same fate as the first one. So any percent here, since they'd have Cassie instead of Agnia, could go straight to the next screen, but this time we have to go to the tavern, and in the tavern you can switch out your party members, so we switch out Agnia for Cassie. And basically, now we can use Cassie, and we're going to use the Soothe pass action once more, and we're also going to steal a Bewitching Perfume from that guy, or from the I think, Princess, anyway. So, Bewitching Perfume basically when you use it, it gives a taunt effect on the character who uses it, which will be useful for the last 2 fights of the run. And after knocking that guy out with Soothe, we can quickly go and turn in our other 2 weapons. And there's actually dialogue for selling the weapon, so he gets mad at us for selling the weapon. He offers to sell it back to us at 150,000. We're not taking that. So we're just going to grab the other 2 weapons. But we're going to be a bit more respectful with these ones. We aren't going to sell them immediately. We're going to sell them in like 15 minutes, but yeah, maybe 10 minutes actually. So we're actually going to equip the Dancer's Blade there, because it's a 300 attack dagger. And Brony's a thief. Thieves use daggers, and having a 300 attack weapon is pretty good. Who would have thought? Me forgetting menus again. Classic. And we're going to sell the Sunken Gold statue we picked up in a chest in the ocean there, which sells for 50k, which is a lot. So this chapter requires us to have done basically one of Partitio's side missions. We already done one, which we bought the ship. We're going to grab Oswald in our party real quick, and then we're just going to do some more story stuff. Again, this is a good time for some more donations, basically. And but at this point in the run, I'm actually going to take a quick break, because I know there's basically nothing eventful coming up for a little bit, so you won't hear from me for maybe about a minute. Okay, I'm back, and just in time for the best character theme in the game. This is also like the only character theme that will play for an extended period of time, because it just plays during this sequence during the chapter, which is kind of nice. Basically, just need to buy a few items for the story, and that's kind of it.
That
And now we're all just about ready to go to the boss of this chapter. One thing I kind of haven't mentioned that we've been doing a lot is basically every cutscene in this game is skippable, so we've just been skipping every cutscene because the story is slow. This game's story is pretty nice. I do like it. But it's a speedrun, you gotta go fast. So no story. Anyway, so this boss is first showcase of the Dancer's Blade, which is like Thron&e.
My
And so we're gonna quickly use it with the HP Thief skill to beat that little summon the boss had. And then now we can we actually get the good turn order here, so we can break into the boss on turn. If Thron&e isn't early on in the turn, you'd have to basically delay breaking the boss to turn 2, which still works. It's almost as fast anyway. And that's the fight. Nice gold split. And now we've unlocked Partitio's chapter 4, which we will just go to immediately. No more lollygagging. And I mean, while we run to this next boss, I'll explain a little bit about the kind of history of this run and why I decided to reroute the entire category. So basically, this run, I'd seen some runs from Japanese players, and like the runs were impressive, but the main downside is that there was a ton of RNG reliance, and the final fight wasn't even like. You had to use a lot of RNG reliance to even get to the final fight, and once you got the final fight, it wasn't even consistent. So, in my quest of making consistent boss fights, also this encounter has killed me, I think, 3 times now, which is crazy. This encounter did not kill me this time, thank God. On the screen, we're also going to do a little bit of walking, so we don't get a second encounter. But essentially, Japanese runners were playing this, and the final fight wasn't consistent, and in my quest to make consistent boss fights, I wanted to see if I could make one that was applicable in the speedrun. And I ended up doing that, and I realized that it actually required such little resources to set up that I could actually reroute the entire category to work around it. So I did that, and this is the result here. So we just use a travel banter to reset our step count there. I think that'll be the last time. Oh no, I think we'll do it one more time in this run. But it's a really useful strat, if you know where to use it, of course. So this is a story purchase. We're spending 80 billion leaves. This money really is not real. Like, you can't really get any bonuses on that purchase, and like if you went somewhere else, I think you can't even like do anything with the money. But it's cool. Anyway, so this boss, it's a train. Unfortunately, we can't suplex it, but we're still gonna beat it up. So we're gonna use leg hold trap, which makes the enemy act last on the following turn, or last when it's active. And we're gonna use higher health beastlings. This is the fight where we use Partitio as late. But yeah, higher health beastlings can really obliterate this boss. We can just break and kill all 4 of the parts of the train. Now, Partitio's Laden, when you use it, gives him a full VP refill. So I can use that to collect from the boss and get 52,000, which is a lot of money. And unlike the first time we were using collect, it actually works all the time. Now we can use Springy Boots, Temenos to make him act first next turn. And that is the Abating Orb. So, Abating Orb is a skill which removes the enemy's buffs one of the mechanics that a lot of the final chapter bosses have in this game is that they basically will monologue. They have a phase 2, and they need to monologue to you to transition to it. And to make sure that they always will do that dialogue, basically, the game has a trigger that makes the boss unable to die until the dialogue has happened. However, the trigger is stored as a buff, so a baiting orb can remove it. So we'll be using a baiting orb to do that the entire run, which is very useful. It's not a glitch. This is a glitchless run. That is, by the speedrun rules, that is not a glitch. It's just kind of a unintended... It's kind of like an unintended use of the skill. I'll say that. Anyway, the Dancer's Blade and Warlord's Spear have paid their dues and will be sold now. Now we have a whopping 350,000 money, which we'll burn through in the next 15 minutes or so, which is actually kind of insane. So now this is the quest that will unlock from Partitio's chapter 4. Oswald did not want to scrutinize that guy, like, my goodness. Also, this next split is called Let's Go Gambling for a reason. I'll explain it once we get to the fight, but I'm about to lose, so I'm currently 2 minutes ahead of my PB. I'll admit, my PB was not great, but what my PB was, it was pretty lucky. This run was not lucky. This split will lose 4 minutes. Also, I don't know where I'm going here. So that's another probably 10 seconds of time loss. So I'm supposed to go in here. Basically, we collected the info to do this quest. And the quest reward is an armor piece that boosts crit, which will be useful later, but it's not the main reason we're doing it. The main reason we're doing this quest is because of this guy right here. This is Aileron. And essentially, you can if you get Aileron as an NPC follower and summon him in battle, he'll give you a modifier of XP or JP for that battle. If you get multiple modifiers of the same type, only the highest one will be taken. But in this next fight, we're going to need times 100 XP and times 10 or higher JP. So basically the strategy for this fight is stall for enough turns to give basically as many chances for Aileron to activate as possible. With the strategies shown here, you have a 29% chance of getting the required multipliers per fight. So Aileron is going... I already know this is 4th try. So Aileron is going to whiff a lot.
My turn.
You're right, not this time. Prepare you, not this time.
So we just, summon him, we put these guys to sleep with Cassie's Concoct, summon Aileron, and then just kind of go for, just stall out the fight until I can get all the deuces in. He really likes giving me XP X10 in this one, huh? So in this fight, I've realized that since you get 6 uses of Aileron, that's not where I'm supposed to go. I'm supposed to quit the title there. But yeah, I can reload my save. If this was, say, a marathon run, I do have a backup save that I can load for this, so if I fail too many times, I can just load my backup save and continue the run. But hopefully, I actually get to show up. 29% chance isn't that bad. You lose, I think, around a half per failed attempt, basically. So, in that one, you basically get, since you get 6 summons, and I hadn't gotten either of the 2 things I wanted after 3 of them, I know I can just reset the fight. So the way I'm putting them to sleep with Cassie is using the Concoct ability. Concoct will be a lot more prominent later in the run, but it is either useful. Also, there's JPX 100. That has the same odds as XP 100, which will become apparent very soon. He really likes giving me JP on. So the exact odds, by the way, are every summon, you have a 25% chance of getting a ×2 modifier. Wait, yeah. a 17.5% chance of getting a times 10 modifier, and a 7.5% chance of getting a times 100 modifier. And those chances are duplicated for both XP and AP. So this is the strat I need for the 6th turn. Also, you probably just saw, that was a mistake, by the way. I should not have ran away there. So I'm just going to sleep soundly and just assume he wasn't going to give me times 100 XP with that summon. With that use there. But he gave me times 100 JP 3 times in a row, which is actually just so mean of him. Like, come on, man. Just give me XP 100 once. Dang.
Prepare yourself. I'm sorry.
Ready?
Kind of. I think at this point I'm playing a little worse because I'm just gobsmacked that I got times 100 JP 3 times in a row. There's XP 10 again, classic Elrond. And at this point, like, my urge to reset is going way up. There's the JP 100 again! And I was like, okay, maybe not, maybe we don't reset this.
You're right, not this time.
But yeah, Elrond is mean. This run has definitely soured my opinion of Elrond. Also, speaking of these exact odds, for any percent, the odds are, if you just want a winnable run for any percent, you only need times 10 XP instead of times 100, which the odds of getting are around 66%, which means it's not nearly as bad. But if you're going for world record in any percent, it's the same odds, because times 100 XP is basically a requirement for record in any percent. I'm saying basically a requirement, it's literally a requirement. And yeah, Elrond did not give it to me there. And we're going once more. The slight hesitation on clicking, I want to say the slight hesitation on clicking continue is just me mentally debating, do I reset this run? Because this RNG is pretty bad. Usually I'd only take, like, first or second try Elrond if I was going for, like, a time. But I think the reason I ended up continuing this run is that when doing this, it was kind of late my time, and since it's such a long run, I didn't have enough time to start another run, so I was like, might as well. But Elrond gives me times 100 XP already, which is very good. I just need times 10 JP, and what do you know, there it is. So now we actually have a kinda decent run. And just watch how much XP we're about to get from this fight. I think I skipped the screen very soon, but I skipped it very quickly. But we just get 720,000 XP and go all the way to level 82 from like level 10 on Hikari, which is insane. And now that we're level 82. We'll need those levels for the end game, but the highest recommended level for a story chapter is level 45, and the highest recommended level for any content we do in this run is 52. So we're a bit over-leveled, but levels in this game don't actually give like an insane amount of stats, but you know, having 80 of them is still a lot. So basically, we're pretty overpowered, especially since we just stole a bunch of really powerful equipment that we're going to equip on Thron&e later. And the reason we're able to, of course, steal the equipment instead of buying it is because we're level 82. So basically everything is going to be a 100% chance to steal, which is very useful because things are expensive, especially like high-quality items. So in this chapter, we're going to, I tried to inquire that NPC and accidentally pulled up my learn skills menu, which is a good one. Now I'm going to do a job menu before fighting this next boss. So I'm going to be learning warrior passives on warrior skills on Thron&e to allow her to break the damage cap when I equip that later. Switch her to the Arms Master job. I'm going to learn thief skills on Hikari, which is the main reason I picked up the thief sub-job. I'm going to learn some more thief skills on Thron&e, and then learn merchant skills on Partitio. This will get me some pretty useful passives. So the thief ones give me a passive called Life in the Shadows, which basically lets me get 50% more XP and JP from every fight, assuming it's at night. And considering that we want to get the bonuses from Thron&e and Temenos, we're going to be doing every fight at night anyway. So it's basically just a 50% XP and JP bonus. We equipped it on both Hikari and Thron&e, but it doesn't actually stack, so we just basically need it. It's just kind of a coincidence. We need it on Hikari for later, and we need it on Thron&e right now, so we just have to kind of do it. Like, it applies to the entire party as well. So it's like the reason we need it on Thron&e right now is because we're going to be taking Hikari out. So in this fight, we're debuffing the boss's defense with armor corrosive, and then going back to the good old hired help these things.
All in a day's work.
Oh yeah, I haven't even mentioned the merchant passive on Partitio. So the support skill we learned on Partitio is called Full Power, and it lets him start out every battle with a full latent power gauge, which is very useful because normally in a casual playthrough you could just go to the inn to refresh to refill your latent power, HP, and SP, but that's pretty slow, so we're never going to do that in the run. So we're just going to use Full Power, and now we can start out every fight with full latent power. And for Partitio, that means full BP, which is very useful. So basically, now we're going to do another detour. We're going to be heading to an area called Ivory Ravine, and there's an item there called the Giant's Club. The Giant's Club is a staff that will increase all physical damage, so all weapon-based damage, by 30% when equipped. This staff is one of the main reasons we actually have Arms Master as Thron&e's job. Because Arms Master not only gives your sub-job will actually give you a stat boost. Arms Master gives a pretty sizable physical attack boost, which is useful, but I mean, the boost is 12%, and it doesn't include your equipment, so it's not that much, but it's still useful. But the main reason we use Arms Master is because Arms Master gives you access to every weapon type, including staff. And most physical jobs won't actually give you access to staff. So now we can equip the Giant's Club. So we're going to steal some items we need for the endgame, and acquire an item there. So Cassie's skill path action in the day is similar to Oswald's, but it works all the time, just requires decently high level. And considering that Cassie is level 82, we're always going to have enough level. So we're level 82, so you might be thinking, why are we still using hired help to kill things? And that is because we're short a little bit of JP. We're just going to equip some gear on Thron&e real quick. Basically, we're going to equip our good dagger we picked up, we stole, and some speed boosting equipment, as well as the Giant's Club I mentioned, and then we're going to make Oswald a merchant. But the reason we aren't able to fully switch over to our new damage method is simply because it costs too much JP to get. We just need a little bit more JP and then we can get it.
I've seen worse methods.
And the reason we're doing this chapter in particular is because this is the only high-level chapter that we currently have unlocked, and this will give us the JP we need, basically. And right now we're doing Mug, some mugs for the story, and hired help is by far and away the quickest way to do these mugs in speedrun, because normally you'd want, like, good gear on Oswald, so, you can kill these guys with spells, but we don't have the time to get good gear, so we can just spend a bunch of money and help. because we have money to spare anyway.
I need a...
This is how I mentioned we are going to burn all of our money in 15 minutes.
I've seen worse methods.
So then, after we beat the first 3 mugs with beastlings, this next one is actually weak, so we don't actually need beastlings to kill this one, so guards is enough. So just use guards, save a bit of money. Next one is too strong for beastlings, so we have to use veterans instead. So that's a little unfortunate money-wise, but you know, it's fine. It's not like we have that. It's not like money is that.
I like my odds. You know what to do. I've gained valuable insights.
So now we're going to be heading into Oswald's final chapter dungeon, which is called the Dusk Ruin Shrine. In older versions of the route, we'd actually pick up an ice soulstone, a large ice soulstone in there, but I figured out that with the reroutes that I've come up with, there's actually a better ice soulstone you can pick up somewhere else. So I'm just going to use that one instead and skip this one. What I'm skipping is going to be we're going to walk right by the chest with us.
Thinking time.
Just a little fun fact, I guess. Kind of pointless because, you know, we literally don't do it. Like, that chest right there is the soulstone. But yeah, now that we're like level 82, and we'll always have at least 2 level 82s in the party, and Evil Ward, we basically just guarantee we can always run from everything, so we never have to worry about dying to failed runaways ever again. Also, one thing I've failed to mention so far is we unlocked an Arms Master support skill called Peak Performance, which basically gives us a 50% damage boost if we're at full HP, which will basically be always.
What?
So, Thron&e basically will just be doing 50% extra damage, which is very good. And we can just use higher health to beat this fight instantly. So this next fight is the reason that we learned Elemental Barrage all that time ago. Elemental Barrage basically hits random elements, rather fire, ice, or lightning. This boss is weak to all 3 of them.
Let's talk.
So it hits a bunch of times, so we can use the Elemental Barrage to break the ice. It hits a random number of times, and that fight is set up so that even if you hit the minimum number of hits, it'll still kill, or it'll still break, and then we can just kill with beastlings and an HP beat for the thing. And that's Harvey.
Time to divvy up the earnings.
In a normal run, we'd actually be like still a bit slightly short of the JP we need, but because of that cape we got at the very beginning of the run, we actually have more than enough right now, but we'll still just learn it later because we don't actually need our main damage skill just yet. But that is, as of now, we have basically retired the use of hired help. We will not be using any more hired help to kill bosses. We'll be using it for utility, and we'll be using it for 1v1 fights, like those Oswald mugs, for example, but we won't need to use it for boss fights anymore. Which, we don't quite have the money to do that. And, you know, ideally, you know, you'd be able to one-shot the boss, which is just faster than using hired help to kill it, so, yeah. So then in this chapter, we're finally going to say farewell to our current party. So Partitio and Oswald will be leaving the party for a bit. Also, grabbing these stupid notes on the floor is so annoying for some reason. Like, sometimes, like, usually it goes well, but, like, you can have stuff like this, where you just fail to pick them up. It's kind of finished to grab them. Anyway, so we're going to switch out our party. So our current party is kind of made to kill things with hired help, but we don't need to do that anymore, so we can switch to a different one. So this will be kind of our main party for the main meat of the run, and that is Hikari and Agnia as our other 2. We're going to learn some skills with Temenos before I explain those, by the way. So basically we need an invasive maneuvers user, and Temenos will be that, and then we're going to give him Warrior, So Temenos' Night Path action is called Coerce, and it basically lets him fight someone, and if he breaks them, he gets info from them. So we need to do one for the story. Thankfully, it's weak to sword, so we can use that aggressive slash skill we used earlier to whack him with the staff, and use aggressive slash. Yeah. That's normally a bit faster, but for whatever reason, I didn't press the boost button 3 times. I only pressed it twice, and hence I had to wait a little bit extra. So, good one, me. So now we're just going to head to the Temple's boss. Fun fact about this area right here, this Sacred Guardship, this is the only dungeon in the game that becomes inaccessible once you complete it. Fortunately, there isn't really that much relevant loot here, but it's just an interesting tidbit. Also, usually you don't get an encounter here, but I did get one here, which is a bit unfortunate.
Come, servant of V-Day.
Also, the reason I saved 20 seconds on Kirby isn't because I'm a god gamer, it's because on my PB I was dumb and forgot to do something and had to fast travel back to the town. So, yeah. And then I saved... I'm going to be saving a little bit of time, because my PB was... It's okay, but there was still some unclean play at times. And of course, I'm not saying this one's perfect, but I think I did overall play much cleaner. And I also got to use all of my new route changes. So we're now going to be starting Agnia's chapters. And Agnia's chapters are the reason we got all of those XP modifiers. So that Life in the Shadows on Hikari, and the XP augmenter. And the reason for it is simply because Agnia needs to be level 35 to complete one of the story chapters later in the game. And normally in any percent, what you would do is you just take Agnia to the Assassin's fight, which is the fight we got like the crazy amount of XP on. But in this run, we need a high-level Hikari for endgame, so we can't actually do that. So what we have to do is we have to get those XP modifiers, and then also make sure that we're taking Agnia to enough optional fights. Fortunately, we need to do a good amount of optional fights anyway in this run, so you basically have to do 0 extra detours, aside from those XP modifiers, to get Agnia the XP she needs, which is unfortunate. So now, because the chapter requires us to do some backtracking, we're not going to do that, and we're going to fast travel away. And now we're going to switch these characters to their go-to jobs for this segment of the run. So, ignore my fumbling a little bit, but Inventor and Hunter Hikari. So Inventor Temenos is pretty standard for this type of run, or for the any percent route this is based off of. Slightly slow menu there, but whatever. So Hunter Hikari is new. It is a new change, it is unique to this run, and it is a very new route change. I've timed it and it saves, I think, around 25 seconds. It's ridiculous. Basically, normally you'd use Merchant Hikari. And effectively, what Merchant does is, it lets you kill, because Hikari has to challenge some people with the story. And Hunter doesn't let you use hired help to kill things, so it initially sounds slower, but Hunter does give you access to a baiting orb. And a baiting orb will let you do a cutscene skip later in the game, and the cutscene, I think, is around 40 seconds long, so despite having overall slower challenge fights, the fact that we can skip that cutscene saves so much time. And to be honest, hired help strats are a bit lame, and I'm glad that the hired help strats are actually faster. Though one thing that has also been changed with that difference is that Agnia no longer gets step ahead, which means we're basically playing with kind of a 3... Agnia will not basically get to do anything in most of these fights.
I won't hold back, Mother.
So,
Cleaning time.
this is our new skill. This is Aber's Reckoning. It's an AoE dagger skill, and I'll explain some more details about it once we kill the boss. Banning Orb, and yeah.
And so it goes.
That will be how most bosses of this run will go from now on. At least the story fights, that is. So Aver's Reckoning is, there's two caveats about it. So the first thing is that it's a strong attack, and it scales under your speed. Or rather, that's kind of what the game says it is, but it uses attack and it gets an additional multiplier based on your speed. So how you usually want to build it is basically get as much attack as you can, and then for any basically gear slots you can't use to buff attack, you use that to buff speed. So in our case, we have speed boosting armor, we have a good dagger, and we have the champion's belt for attack. And the other thing about it is that it's a divine skill. Divine skills are basically, they require, when you use them, you need to have 3 VP. So you need to spend 3 VP to use a divine skill. Which does mean that in fights where we want to kill them, we will have to wait at least one turn to use Aver's Reckoning. Though we won't need to use Aver's Reckoning in every fight, obviously. We'll have to use it most of them. There's some fights that are weak enough where we obviously just don't. It's overkill. So this is kind of the cleanup phase of the run. We're basically cleaning up a bunch of stories, doing a few side missions to get stuff we need for the endgame. And speaking of stuff we need for the endgame, this is one of them.
I'll do what I must.
After this fight, at least. So there are basically 2 categories of items we need to make the endgame fights work. The first one is offensive boosts. And the Giant's Club, for example, is one of those. It's an offensive boost we need for the endgame, and we might as well pick it up as soon as we can, because more offense means we can fights faster. The second one is defensive boosts, and that was what we just picked up. We picked up a Lightning Amulet. So the Lightning Amulet basically gives a 50% resistance to lightning damage. Also, just, hello, Lamani.
What?
Goodbye, Lamani.
All tidied up.
Anyway, so back to the Lightning Amulet. So it gives 50% resistance to lightning damage. And the final fight of this run has a very, very strong lightning attack, especially considering we're not going to be getting a lot of defensive gear. Excuse me. Basically, we're not going to have a lot of defensive gear, so this lightning attack is going to rip through a party, especially because it has random targets. So, we basically, in order to survive that attack, we're going to need to make 3 characters basically immune to lightning damage. So, basically, to do that, we're going to get 2 lightning amulets, put it on a character, which 50 plus 50 is 100. Also, we're stealing a nut here, and we're stealing a soulstone here. This is another kind of story chapter that boss, so I'm just going to use this to yap about the endgame stuff. So, basically, we'll be using lightning amulets. So, 2 lightning amulets on a character, 50% plus 50% is 100% resistance, so they will take 1 damage from any lightning hit they take. Or, we can use a thunderstorm amulet, which gives 99% resistance, which is enough. It's basically all we need. So, we will be getting 2 lightning amulets and 2 thunderstorm amulets for the run. And we'll be getting those across the run. We'll also be needing to get some HP boosting items, because as I mentioned, we'll need to be turning one of our characters into a tank. Well, we'll need to be turning 2 characters into a tank. One of them is Partitio, and since Partitio is level 82, he really doesn't need that much more to be turned into a tank. The other one will need a good amount. So, one reason I'm actually switching to night in this chapter is that there's some NPCs that'll get in your way if it's daytime, so I'm trying to have it be night as much as I can, basically. And now the chapter is finished, and I will quickly, before I head off to my next detour, which is not under 90%, I will be using Agnia's Entreat path action, which is basically nighttime steal, except it can't fail. Basically, Agnia just asks nicely, and they give her items. There's a level requirement, but yeah. So in this encounter, on this screen, on the C, we're gonna grab a Fortune Wand, which is a staff that boosts speed and will be useful later. It's faster to go up that way, because it lets you pick up the staff at that point. And then this is a shark. It's big and scary, but we're scarier.
I take what I want.
Aber Prince of Thieves, my boy. Anyway, so we defeat the shark, and that allows us access into this dungeon here, the Curious Nest. And the Curious Nest is the main reason we came this way. Well, the XP on XP is nice too, but the Curious Nest is why we're here. There's another boss in this dungeon, and after that, was some very, very useful equipment. So we switch to Knight here for the boss, and so in this boss, we're going to see the 6-fold strike on Master Skill, which hits 6 times, once with each weapon type. The boss has a gimmick where every time you hit it with a weapon, it'll lose that weakness until it just has one left. So we now just have bow weaknesses, so we can break that. This fight, if you get good turner, you can save a turn, but we didn't get the turner, so I have to delay an extra turn and kill with Aber's Reckoning, Latent Power, and HP.
And so it goes.
So this dungeon has some very, very useful items for later in the game. First is up as an Decaying Dragon's Essence, which is a consumable item that will break 4 shields on the enemy, which is very useful. That's the Fang of Ferocity, which we equip to Thron&e. We also, the shark dropped the Lost Tribes Blade. We use some nuts on... the Lost Tribes Blade is one of the stronger swords in the game, and we equip that to Hikari, because since we can't use Merchant, we need some form of method to get damage, and the Lost Tribes Blade is enough damage. And so the other item we just got is a Fang of Ferocity. So the Fang of Ferocity, which we equip to Thron&e, basically gives us a 30% damage boost on all boosted attacks. And it includes skills, and basically any turn you boost, you get a 30% damage boost. And since we're always going to be boosting on turns we want to do damage, it's basically just a 30% damage boost multiplicative, which is very, very strong. This screen will have, to my knowledge, the last tribal banter of the run, to reset step count. And this is the reason we're grabbing a large ice soulstone, because we can basically just use it here and defeat these soldiers instantly.
All tidied up.
And now here comes up the fun strat. This is when we get to fight challenges normally. So this is why we learned the Vengeful Blade skill in Hikari, which basically gives me the ability to counter a sword attack, or counter any physical attack the enemy has. The counter actually hits pretty hard, as you'll see right here. In this fight, so then the Abating Orb, to skip a cutscene, because there is a cutscene in this fight. This isn't the long cutscene. If one of those 3 attacks I just did crit, boss would be dead right now, but since I missed all 3 crits, I have to delay an extra turn, which kind of sucks, but it's fine. Anyway, this boss drops a pretty strong learn skill called Divine Dual Edge. It is, to my knowledge, it's the 2nd strongest AoE learn skill, at least physical AoE. I think there's a magic AoE that's stronger than it. The fastest one's pretty slow to pick up, so we're getting the second. The strongest one is pretty slow, so we're getting the 2nd strongest because that's really all we need, and that'll be useful later on. So now we're heading to one of Temenos' chapter 3s, and one interesting thing is that some of Temenos' chapters have you visit the inn. And despite it being like a cutscene and not a real inn, it still counts as a real inn and will fully heal your HP and SP. If it healed latent power, it'd be super convenient, but it does not heal latent power, unfortunately. But since Thron&e was running out of SP from using Aber's Reckoning too much, these tavern visits are nice. There's actually enough chapters in this game that will fully heal HP and SP that we will never need to use items to restore Thron&e's SP, which is very, very useful. I can also mention what the nuts we gave to Thron&e are. So nuts, as I mentioned, are permanent stat boosts. So we gave her some speed buff. We gave her some to buff her speed, because speed increases her Aber's Reckoning damage. And we gave her one to buff her accuracy, because later on in the run, on the very last fight, she will need to hit her attacks against the final boss, basically. Well, not the final boss of this run, which is the hardest fight in the game. And as far as accuracy goes in this game, the exact formula isn't known, but to my knowledge, if you have accuracy equal to their, if you have accuracy equal to or higher to their evasion, your skills will always hit them if they don't have an accuracy penalty. Like, some skills do have a built-in accuracy penalty, though it's not very many of them. It's usually like some of the kind of like variable hit, multi-hit skills, which we'll not be seeing any of in this run. So like, if you've played this game casually, something like Squall of Arrows or Frenzied Fire will miss a good amount. Anyway, that a tangent aside. Then with normal attacks, the accuracy threshold to hit is you need 75. You need your accuracy to be equal to or greater than 75%. Anyway, I've kind of glossed over the fact we've gone to this island here because it has a boss and a pretty useful item in that chest back there. So we're coming here for the item. And yeah, the Lost Tribes Blade, you kind of saw that basic attack of Hikari did like 1500 damage, which is very good. So the item we get here is actually better than the Fang of Ferocity. It's called the Finisher's Clause, and it gives a 50% damage boost to critical hits. However, we don't actually have a good enough build to guarantee critical hits yet, so we won't use this quite yet. So now we're going to fight this boss, the Scourge of the Sea. And this fight, it's a slight damage range, so we have Hikari with regular basic attack. And that'll fix the range. Thron&e hit the range here, but she can rarely miss the range, so that's why you do the basic attack there. Then I'm going to sail slowly for a little bit on the way to this island here, because you can get an encounter if you don't. At least I think. But yeah, this island here is home of the Arcanist job. And just like the other speedrun category that picks up Arcanist, we're going to be using it for one support skill, and that's all we're going to be using it for. Though we're actually not even going to pick the same support skill as the other one. The other one picks up for the Price of Power support skill, which buffs magic damage by 50%. However, it only affects certain types of magic damage, and we won't be using any of those for damage in this run. Well, not certain elements, it's more of it only affects certain skills. Specifically, it only affects AoE skills from Scholar, Cleric, and Arcanist. Which is a bit arbitrary, I think it's dumb, but whatever. Anyway, we're also going to grab 2 Ancient Curse Talismans, which are consumables that will debuff the enemy's defense and elemental defense. Also, I haven't even mentioned the support skill from Arcanist we're using in this run. The one we're going to use basically lets us keep our buffs after we die. Usually when you die, you lose all your buffs, and you might think dying is slow, but in the last two fights of the run, you kind of have to die if you want to go into them with as little gear as we're going to go into them with. So you kind of have to take some intentional deaths. Don't worry, the fights are still consistent, but like literally every boss fight in this run is perfectly consistent, like you will always win. The only RNG that comes from fights in this run is literally just the 95% collects and then the stupid Aileron gambling.
Do be gentle. Oh dear.
Which is quite nice. But yeah, intentional deaths will be a thing near the end of the run, and keeping your buffs through an intentional death is useful. I want to say I did the math, and I think it's like there's anywhere between 16 and 21 intentional deaths. I might be wrong on that number, but there's a good amount of intentional character deaths in this run. I think it's between 13 and 18, that's the correct number. This is another boss, basic stuff, Evading Orb, and then hit him with Evading Orb, and then hit him with Favorite Record. There he goes.
And so it goes.
As for why I saved 20 seconds here, I don't know. Not 20 seconds, but like why I saved 14 seconds here, I don't remember what happened to my PB, but something probably did. That or it might be route changes. Because my PB was still on the old route, which didn't use Hunter Hikari strats, and didn't do a few other things as well. But now we're going to be heading towards the town of Stormhill. And to get there, we're going to knock out an NPC. Fortunately, we have Thron&e in the party, so we can just ambush and take them out. I kind of forgot to mention ambush, I think. Oh wait, no, I did. I mentioned at the very start of the run. Ignore if I sometimes I'll probably, since there's literally 16 path actions in this game, like, I'm almost certain to miss one. Yeah, I think I've explained every path action in our current party that is relevant to the run, besides Bribe. Bribe is Hikari's night action, and it lets him pay money to get info. And currently, our only two options for info are Bribe and Coerce, and seeing as Coerce has to literally fight someone, if we want to get info from an NPC, Bribe is our fastest option. This will be relevant later. And right now we're basically heading to this town because we want to finish Hikari's Chapter 5. And the reason we want to do that is because right now our setup has one weakness. And that is if we want to use an AoE on an enemy. So right now we have a strong AoE skill, which is Aver's Reckoning, which also counts as a strong single target because it does enough damage to kill bosses anyway. Also, starting Temenos' chapter and not Hikari's chapter is very important there. Because Temenos' chapter finishes with you outside of the town, which lets you warp back in to start Hikari's. But Hikari's chapter doesn't, so you'd have to fast travel an extra time, which is obviously the slower. So basically, the reason we want to do Hikari's chapter, we're stealing some items on the way here too. So we got there's one of our Thunderstorm amulets. We stole a nut from one of the guys as well. But basically, the reason we want to do Hikari's chapter is because currently we have a weak single target skill. For a single target skill we can use on weak enemies, which is HP Thief. We have our strong AoE and single target, which is Aver's. But we don't have a weak AoE, which means on an encounter where we want to kill it with an AoE, for example, there'll be some story fights where you have to fight off against some relatively weak enemies, we'll have to use a full Aver's Reckoning, which is a bit slow. So what we want to do is we want to get access to a good AoE, and the best skill for that is Inventor's Catapult. The issue with Inventor's Catapult is that Inventor doesn't give you access to the Inventor job doesn't give you access to staff. And so that we lose the 30% damage boost from the Giant's Club, so we want to replace that with a 30% damage boost from the Battle-Tested Blade, which gives the exact same boost. They actually stack, and later in the run we will stack them to do crazy damage, but we don't need to stack them for the 80% portion. And we basically will use the Battle-Tested Blade to compensate for our lack of Giant's Club. And then that'll let us switch to Inventor, and then we'll have a good AoE. Anyway, while I was doing that explanation, some traumatic events happened, if you've played this game, and now we're heading on the way to beat up a boss. On this screen, one thing I'd advise if you're running this category is that on this screen, it can be night occasionally when you come onto the screen, so just double check that it's not night, because if it is night, you want to switch to day immediately so you don't get extra battles here. Extra battles, get it? Haha, like the name of the category? They have nothing to do with each other, I just wanted to make a stupid joke. Anyway, this boss is going to be done in the same way that we've been doing the other bosses, just defend Aver's Reckoning. Fun fact, I remember counting the skills, and I want to say Aver's Reckoning is used over 20 times this run. It is one of 3 skills to get over 20 uses in this run. It's Aver's Reckoning, Hired Help, And then one I won't mention yet, because it'll be some fun stuff at the end of the run. The other skill will be our main damage source at the end of the run, which I think it's cool. Don't worry. Be on the lookout for that. Like, this kind of part seems a little boring, and I'll agree with you, it kind of is. Which is kind of the reason I don't like any percent that much, because this is basically the whole run. Like, you just walk up, kill the boss, and leave. But the end bosses are really, really cool, and I highly recommend. If you're not gonna watch the entire run, at the very least watch the extra battles. Anyway, this is one of those weak fights that we have to waste neighbors on. So we did that. Another bonus of using Inventor Catapult is it actually doesn't use any SP, which is very nice. There's a flashback battle right here. And this flashback battle is pretty quick. And the strat is just attack him twice to lower the shields. We have an attack debuff, so we defend to get rid of it, and then break the boss with a wild cut, and then kill the boss with not a boss, but whatever. Anyway, fight over. Now get prepared for 11 cutscenes in a row. Yes, I counted them, because I was like, how many cutscenes is this? The answer is 11. It's actually insane. There's 10, and there's 11. Now we're free from jail, and we can go to the boss. Yeah, as you can see by the times, we've kind of slowly been crawling our way back up. Generally, when you consume time save, it's either from route or from playing better, usually playing better. And the main time loss, of course, in this run is, 4th try Elrond, losing 4 minutes. Thanks, Elrond. Love ya. There's our second Thunderstorm Amulet, so that part has completed.
Stand aside and fight. Now it begins.
So we now have both our Thunderstorm Amulets, and we're about to fight another boss, and wanna bet how we do this one? Maybe it'll be different than the last ones. The last, 5 bosses. Surely, right?
What?
If you guessed no, it won't be, you would be correct. Because, there we go.
And so it goes.
There will be some interesting bosses coming up, don't worry. Or at least more interesting. I know this, and then on our way to Hikari's final chapter, we're going to do Agnia's chapter 4. And there's a bit of downtime here. I'm going to take another quick break, so I'll be back on the commentary in a little bit. I do realize there is one thing I didn't mention about this chapter. So, on the first walk down to the house at the beginning of the chapter, there's an NPC I walk by that has a reinforcing jam. And if I had used my reinforcing jam at that one part in the run where I mentioned that you could use that to refill Thron&'s power, which was right after I got the champion spell, I would actually steal that reinforcing jam from that NPC on the way to the house. I only realized that once I took my break. I was like, wait, I kind of remember that. Anyway, it's fine.
My turn.
And this is another boss, and again, it's gonna go down the same way as the last few.
Wait for me, Lila.
Kira, not this time.
Ader, Prince of Thieves.
I take what
Sorry,
I want.
Prince of Thieves. You know, classic. And now we're going into Hikari's final chapter. And Hikari's final chapter is the one with the 40-second long cutscene you can skip at the baiting order. So, this is probably one of my favorite... I think it's probably my favorite story chapter. Also, I should not have ran that second part of the second part, but I did it anyway, and I somehow skipped the encounter despite running the screen, which is crazy. And I also almost skipped this encounter. I've never skipped the encounter.
Out of my way.
I almost did, literally one step away, which is crazy. But yeah, this chapter is basically a boss rush. Literally 4 bosses back to back to back to back. In a casual setting, you do get an autosave after the first one, but it's still 3 back to back to back fights. It's one of the harder final chapters casually, and I mean, needless to say, none of the story bosses are really going to put up that much resistance in this run. But it's probably one of my favorite final chapters, both casually and, the speedrun. It's just fun. There's, But yeah, in this run, it does not disappoint. Well, kind of the fights get progressively more interesting. The first 2 are kind of a bit meh, and then the rest of them are both. So we're just kind of doing the beginning story stuff on the chapter, and then we can actually, go fight some stuff, which is pretty nice. Because, movement is a part of the speedrun. It's not going to be where you save your time. You're saving your time from menus, and you're saving your time from your fights, which are basically menus, but, you know what I mean. You're saving time by doing menus fast rather than... Speaking of that, though, this run's actually, Octopath speedruns in general are actually pretty easy. They're actually not too difficult to get into. I got into them as a complete casual back when I was playing Octopath 1, and I quite enjoyed it. Especially in this game, where step ahead makes it's really consistent. So in this fight, this first fight, pretty late, not lazy, pretty relatively lame. So all we need to do is just a baiting orb, and then Aber's Reckoning. We actually had a crit on that Aber's Reckoning. So crits are based on the enemies. So the defense stat is not what protects you against crits. What protects you against getting crit is your speed stat. And that boss has enough speed that we won't always crit it. A lot of bosses will, because we don't have crit yet. This boss also has high enough speed, and on this boss, a crit will not kill. So we need to use critical scope to ensure we crit. And no, this is not my bar for an interesting boss fight. The next 2 fights are interesting. It's still kind of a neat thing. You need the critical scope because of... No. So, now we get some cool stuff. Here is the 30-second time save from Hikari Hunter. It might be a little less than 30 seconds, but since I know it's about 30... Since I know it's probably 25 seconds, I know it's faster. So you aggressive slash, chip some shields off, hit it with the evading orb, then use aggressive slash to break, and that triggers the bolstering break passive, which means an attack buff. He hits the damage cap twice, and then whacks him with a Hachi Mongibiri. Also, farewell, imposter. Just thought I would say that. This next fight is interesting because it's done during the day. Can't do this fight at night, so we don't get free buffs. We have to do our buffs manually. So we have to. So the fastest way to do this is to use 6-fold strike to break 4 shields, debuff the boss. Use aggressive slash, Hikari, to break 6 more. Attempt doesn't need to do anything, and then Lion Dance with Agnia. There is a version of this fight that is faster if Agnia goes before Thron&e on turn 2. You would skip using Springy Boots, and it would instead have Temenos break the boss in addition to Hikari. So, and basically you just push things a turn earlier, and you could defeat the boss on turn 2. But that's Hikari Chapter 5. And after that, we're going to do our first crossed path chapter of the run. These are also required to unlock the final boss. Also, ignore me, like, moving around. Just awful movement. Just, what am I doing? Anyway, we're going to buy 21 Bluster Bloom, which we'll need for later. And continue on with the chapter. But crossed paths are basically, they're short, relatively short chapters that are completed with 2 characters. You need both of them in your party at once to complete the chapter, which is part of the reason we have the parties we do. Because Thron&e and Temenos is a cross-path pairing, and same with Hikari and Ignia. Basically, we're almost always gonna have cross-path pairings in our parties, so it's just really convenient to route in when we do the cross-paths. But the cross-paths have each of them have 2 chapters, so there's 8 total cross-path chapters in the game. Like 8, like Octopath. Sorry. Anyway, so we're on the way to actually get our battle-tested blade, and we get to save 90,000 because we don't need to buy it. We can just steal it, because Thron&e's level 83 at this point. So now we're going to equip it, and I mentioned the Finisher's Clause, and we're actually equipping that now. And the reason we're equipping Finisher's Clause now is because we want to equip them later anyway, but at this point it barely loses any. Well, it lets us save time on one fight, and it loses time. It loses a tiny bit of time on another fight, basically. And on that fight there, we actually have to use Catapult to. So the thing about Catapult is you can actually change the weapon type it uses. So we actually had to do that there to hit the enemies with Dagger to kill them, with weak to Dagger. I just realized I haven't actually mentioned what being weak to something does. So in addition to breaking a shield, it will also deal 1.3 times damage if they are not broken. So we can use that for quite a bit of damage to bench. And these next few bosses are all going to be weak to Dagger, which basically means that Ager's Reckoning is going to kill them extra hard. And that was an empowering necklace, which will contribute towards our task of creating a tank, because it gives 1,000 extra HP, which is a lot of HP. I just realized I've probably consumed about like a liter of water. I think I've consumed like a full liter of water in this commentary. Oh my god. Like, that was one of my breaks. I think. Anyway. Oh my god, what happened to the music? Okay, that was weird. Okay. That's weird. My video feed I'm watching right now. Anyway, so that boss is weak to Dagger, and we just can't. Okay, that was really weird. Okay. The audio is fixed on my end. Okay, that was really weird. Anyway, so during this chapter, we will also basically need to start a quest. So there's a quest that unlocked from Agnia's Chapter 5, and we will complete that quest now, or start the quest, rather. So we'll start it by talking to Veronica here. Some quests you don't have to start to continue, but this one we do. So now we're doing Thron&e's final chapter, and once you complete your starter's final chapter, you can actually swap them out of the party. But as you can probably see, Thron is pretty valuable to this run, so we won't actually screw the road. And yeah, this chapter is just kind of some walking, at least for a bit, because we need to go to a new town.
Let's play. What to do?
So on these, on the screens of these chapters, you can walk them to basically always skip the encounter, but I found it's just faster to run because you skip the encounter most of the time, and obviously running is faster than walking. So now in this town here, we're actually going to steal a few items. So this first one is the Moon Eater, which is a dagger that increases wind damage. Next one is a Forbidden Elixir, which is the second one of that thing we stole at the very beginning of the run on Oswald's third chapter. And this third one is an Almighty Olive, which will basically fully heal and revive the entire party, which is very useful because, as I mentioned earlier, we will be taking some intentional deaths, and that'll help us revive, basically.
Time to clean up the kitchen. Ready?
I can also mention what the Forbidden Elixir does, I guess. So the Forbidden Elixir, if you aren't familiar, basically will set the character you use it on to 1 HP, and then fully refill their BP and SP. So basically fully refill your stuff you need to cast skills and BP, but you'll be at 1 HP. So obviously right now, since we're using a skill called Peak Performance that gives us a 50% damage boost when we're at full health, we wouldn't want to do that. But later in the game, we will want to do it. And I'll explain later, basically.
Ready?
But yeah, this fight, we do need to, it's a range if you miss the crit, which I actually hit the crit this time for a full 99k.
So it goes.
Because we have the Finisher's Clause on, our crits are normally crits are a 25% damage boost, but thanks to the 50% multiplicative boost from the clause, they basically jump up to an 87.5% increase, so the crits are a massive thing. So, basically, if we miss the crit on that boss, we just barely don't kill it, so that's why Hikari did 2 attacks there. And now this is the chapter that requires Agnia level 35, and if you could check Agnia's level right now, I'm pretty sure she is exactly level 35. Also, I did not mean to steal that Azuki Porridge there. I'll sell it later because I didn't want to screw up my menus. On the way, so this chapter actually also has like a lot of things that you can, like in this town there's a lot of things you can treat or steal, mainly nuts. So we're doing a lot of that. There was a large light nut that we skipped stealing in this run. It basically makes the final fight of the run perfectly consistent if you steal it. And also we're skipping some backtracking by going this way, and we need to progress that quest we started, we need to get some info from an old lady. And since I mentioned our only methods of info gathering are bribery and coercion, and bribery is faster, we're bribing the poor old lady to let her tell us about the child she helped raise. Yeah, sometimes you have to do some unethical things for the sake of going fast. Weird tangent aside, so now we just can turn in the items to this guy, and now we actually have to head off to an area called the Tranquil Grotto, and in this area we'll have to challenge someone. Unfortunately, Hunter will not be faster for this challenge. We will be doing the good old merchant strats because there's no cutscenes to skip anymore. We have to. We unfortunately have to play. We unfortunately have to not play the game normally. At least it's not boring. Though. There is actually improvement. strat with that challenge. What else? Is there anything else?
Come and get me.
I mean, I could do the funny YouTube thing. Be sure to subscribe, haha. Or, you know, leave a like, subscribe, whatever. I feel so fucking awkward asking about that. Also, sort of feel swear. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, yeah. We just kind of walk. Oh, right, there is a funny thing and stuff. So basically, in this dungeon, if you walk at this bridge in a weird angle, you can actually basically, like, clip into it and get stuck. I have literally had that happen before in a run. I originally thought it loses like 2 minutes because you have to teleport, you have to fast travel back to Ku, but you don't. You just have to quit and then reload your save. So it's probably more like 30 seconds or 20 seconds. Anyway, so here's the challenge strat. So I mentioned speed is crit defense. So we're lowering the speed with slowing sweep, and then we just use foreign assassins to kill. So, as for why foreign assassins over veterans, they do slightly more damage and are quicker to select. Also, we did not learn that learn skill. We don't need it, and it will screw up your screw up our skill menuing later. So, yeah. So now we're heading off to Temenos' final chapter, which will be the last final chapter we'll be doing with this party.
Let's play.
And if you remember this area was the area we got evasive maneuvers in. And as you might expect, it's much less dangerous now because we're like multiple times the level that we were back then. And on the way to this town, it's extremely rare, but you can skip this encounter. I did not get it this far, but I think I've gotten it twice ever. And it's not, there's no skill, it's just luck. I mean, you do have to have decently good movement to skip it, but I had good movement there and I still got it, so yeah. One of my favorite songs in the game, played for about a second there. Anyway, in case you're wondering, the song's called Soliloquy, if you want to look it up. Anyway, we're stealing an item here, Nourishing at Large. Will contribute towards our task of turning a character into a tank. And I should probably just stop saying a character. It's going to be Oswald, which is very funny, because Oswald has the lowest HP of any character in the game. And nuts give stats proportional to that character's base stat. Also, we picked up an Ancient Circlet from the shop there. Ancient Circlet is the second best elemental attack giving helmet. So that kind of does say we are going to be using elemental attacks. I mean, the other big tip-off is, you know, we are stealing magic nuts, which boost elemental attack. But the reason we don't go for the best one is because it is locked behind... You don't have to complete the quest, but you at the very least need to start a pretty out-of-the-way quest. So we're not doing that. Besides, it's only 10 more elemental attacks, so we're just gonna not bother. Also, for reference on how much stats that is, like, the best weapons give 400 attack, and the cap for a given stat is 999. In this run, we do not actually cap any stats. At least, I don't think we do. I think we get very close at the end of the game to capping one stat, but I don't think we cap it. I think we get it up to like 997 or something.
Come and get me. Game time.
But this boss is actually one of the bosses where having Finisher's Claws on Throne saves time. Also, we didn't actually just equip Finisher's Claws on Throne, we also equipped the, what was it? We also equipped the Butler's Tailcoat on her, which gives her extra crit, but that's still not enough to guarantee crits on this fight, at least not yet. And, basically, this fight, we need a crit, so we're going to use Thron&e's Latent, apply Critical Scope,
So that's your weakness.
defend so we go first next turn,
Here I come.
attack 3 times with Hikari to fix the damage range, and as you can see there, we actually needed the attack. The boss is 100k health, we did 97,000 damage, so we needed all 3 Hikari attacks to do them. So we actually need the Hikari attacks to kill. The unfortunate part of that strat is it burns Thron&e's Latent. Oh wait, I kind of forgot to mention that. So the reason she even had Latent in the first place is the Dulcinea fight, which is Agnia's final chapter boss. The second phase of that actually gives you a full Latent power refill, which is very convenient, because 3 of the 4 characters that come to that fight will use that refill. And speaking of that, Temenos is about to use his refill right now, because this guy is not weak to bow, which Hunter has as its main damage skill. I accidentally turned off late before realizing I need to turn it back on again, so that was very slow, but Temenos' Latent basically lets him break his shield regardless of what damage type he's using, so I can shoot that guy with a bow 5 times and still break him, even though he's not weak to bow. So right now we're just going to go finish Temenos and Thron&e's crosspath. And basically this stage of the run, with this party, we basically just want to finish up the crosspaths we have left. So
Ready?
we're going to do most of Temenos and Thron&e's and finish Oswald and Partitio's. One thing I find a little funny about this party currently is that 3 of the 4 characters, so everyone but Thron&e, has evasive maneuvers equipped. It doesn't stack, but it's just funny we have 3 characters with it on, and all of them are in the party. And that's basically it for the chapter. We just need to skip, I think, 2 cutscenes, and then it's done. And now coming up next is the first chapter of Oswald and Partitio's chapter of Crosspath. And in regular any percent, this chapter is usually done much earlier than now. But since we need to talk to Veronica again to complete that quest, we need to come back here anyway, so it's good to do that now. And that quest actually led to probably one of my favorite tiny little routing optimizations in this category. So in this story chapter, we basically have to buy materials for this guy's telescope and then give them to him. So the guy is the guy in the blue coat right at the north end of the town. So we buy the 3 ingredients. Then we have a little cutscene like, oh, we've got all the ingredients, let's go. But now, instead of going up to go to the guy, we go down, talk to Veronica to complete the quest. And now, guess where the quest puts us when we're done? Right next to the guy, and we can just cash that in immediately. Story chapter done. The item we just got from the Veronica quest is the Bodyguard's Vantage, which is a shield that doesn't really do much good at being a shield at all, but it instead gives physical attack, accuracy, and crit. So as you notice, that once we equip that to Thron&e, if you were very keen, her critical stat now read 510. Since I know the speed stats of the remaining bosses we'll be fighting with Thron&e, I know that the lowest crit value I need to guarantee crits on every fight that Thron&e will be doing damage on for the rest of the fight, for the rest of the run, is 495. She has more than that, so she will always crit for the remainder of the run, which is very, very useful, which means we always get that juicy damage buff from the finisher squats. And now in this chapter... Oh, we also, that mug we did is not part of the story chapter. We mugged a lightning enemy, which is the final one we need.
I take what I
While
want.
mugging is kind of slow, we don't have Agnia in the party to entreat it, and the other lightning amulets in the game are even slower, so we just mug that one.
Judgment.
But yeah, this guy, basically, the telescope got stolen, and this guy's got goons. I don't know why I'm telling the story of this chapter. I'm overall gonna be pretty light on story spoilers, because, you know, there's just no need. But, now we gotta mug this guy, so hired help, go gadget, hired help, and, easy win.
Study harder.
And that's the chapter. And one thing that we did do during the chapter is we did a support when we made Oswald a merchant. We actually unequipped 2 support skills. So we unequipped Step Ahead from Oswald because he won't be needing it for the rest of the run, and we unequipped Evasive Maneuvers from Temenos. So right now, since we have Partitio and Oswald who have Evasive Maneuvers, it doesn't actually do anything. But when those 2 leave the party, that actually means we won't have evasive maneuvers anymore, which will be useful since we'll actually need to grind some encounters, basically. It's not really grinding, but you'll see. Now we start a chapter, and instead of backtracking, we just warp somewhere else, and now we're gonna go finally recruit Ochette. Yeah, Ochette. Yeah. She's useful in the run. She doesn't get nearly as dirty as Oswald does. But, yeah, she's kind of delayed for the end, because it's just inconvenient to pick her up earlier. I did have, like, old versions of the route where I'd pick up Ochette early, and then, like, Ochette's a hunter, so she can capture, her special thing is she can capture beasts. And I basically had a version of the route where I'd go out of the way to capture a beast with her early, because I thought it'd be useful in the final boss. Turns out it isn't actually useful in the final boss because it misses a whole bunch, so I ended up having to just reroute the final boss to not involve that, and it works without it, so it doesn't matter. And now we're going to grab Ochette. And when you pick Ochette, you have a choice of animal companion, either the fox or the owl. And, it's not a fox, it's a jackal, but I'm sorry to all you jackal enjoyers, but the owl is the optimal pick in this run, because we'll actually need to summon it on the final fight of the run, and during that fight, the jackal can miss, and the owl cannot, because the owl uses magic, and the jackal uses physical attacks.
Let's play.
Oh dear.
So basically, right now, the reason we're grinding encounters is because to progress in Ochette's other thing with captured beasts is she can basically turn them into food items. These are normally battle items, but there's also one of them. This basically, to progress in her story, you need to get an item called Aromatic Jerky, and give it to this guy, because one of her path actions basically lets you just persuade NPCs to follow you around with food. So we're going to use that. But this, the monster you need to catch for it is a 30% spawn chance, and I get its 6th try in this run, so I think it's this fight right here. This little pig. Oh, no, it's not this one, it's the next one, then. Right? I think it's the 6th try at least. I think I was counting correctly. Yep, there it is right here. I was counting, but sick. So, we use Spring Boots on Ochette, so she goes first, next turn, and then weaken it with Temenos, and then Ochette can just capture it. From what I can tell, those specific beasts actually have increased capture rates, because Ochette needs to capture one for the story, so we only need to, like, weaken it a tiny amount, which is convenient. If you're running this yourself, you can actually kind of... Also, we're going to equip support skills now, so we're going to equip Step Ahead on Ochette, because we need that for later, and we're going to equip basically back on Temenos, because, you know, encounters are slow. But if you're running this yourself, one thing you might run into on that fight is that an enemy will get to go before you can run away, and if that happens, you'll have to keep an eye out for if it hits Ochette will die and you'll need to revive her, and if it hits Thron&e, it'll deactivate her peak performance, so you'll need to heal her to reactivate that. Fortunately, that didn't happen in this run, so I didn't need to do that. But yeah, here, we're actually going to catch a beast. Any percent does not do this. Also, if you get a cake here, you lose a ton of time because you need to catch both of these beasts. So the strategy we use to catch them is, we can soften them up with a Thron&e catapult. Normally we'd use leg hold trap with Temenos here to delay their actions, but we don't actually need that, so we can just capture. Then we use Springy Boots again, make Ochette go first next turn. This frog can actually do some pretty nasty stuff, so we're gonna put it to sleep.
I think not.
And there we go, captured. So now we captured both of these, and now we're gonna cook up a nice 2-course meal. Buttermeat and Vagrant Frog King 1. That... Try to cook the Frog King challenge. Impossible, I guess. I messed up the menu like multiple times. I don't know how. Anyway, I promise I'm a decent cook in real life. Oh my god. Terrible joke. I mean, I am. I'd say I'm an okay cook. Whatever. That aside. Anyway, I didn't... Oh yeah, I actually saved some more time on Ochette, so I'm now actually ahead of my PB. Though I think I'm now actually behind because... No, I'm not behind, because my PB also had an awful, just completely abysmal Buttermeat hunt. Basically, now we just need to befriend this guy using the Buttermeat jerky, the aromatic jerky we got. And the reason we turned one of the frogs into jerky, we need the other one as a summon later in the run, but the reason we turned one of the frogs into jerky is, because yeah, so Ochette can summon the beast in battle, but is that it drops spicy jerky and it gives you 3 of them. Spicy jerky will buff your attack and elemental attack for 3 turns when you use it, which is very, very good, because normally to buff those things you need to be like a dancer and you need to use like one of the skills for that, but being able to do it with an item is really useful. We're going to use all 3 of those throughout the run, which is nice. Now, this fight is, if you're lucky, you can get a 1-turn. I was not lucky in this run. Ochette went first. I want Thron&e to go before Ochette, and then, yeah, HP Thief just one-shots. Well, technically it's a 2-shot, it hits twice, but, yeah. Ochette actually captures her bosses instead of killing them, because they're beasts of legend, and she needs to, capture them. Very basic Ochette's phrase, I guess. She needs to capture the 3 beasts of legend to, basically prevent against the great disaster. I don't remember the exact... Oh, I do remember the exact name, I'll just omit the exact name. Anyway, this is Cassie's Chapter 3. Casually, this chapter... I think this chapter made me cry. But, yeah, it's Cassie's chapter of the boss. So in the speedrun, this is what marathons would call donation time, because it's just cutscenes. There is actually one interesting thing that happens during this chapter that I would mention. Like, not story-wise, just from a routing perspective. I'll mention it when we actually do it, because it's like a flashback sequence. This chapter is kind of goes back and forth between flashbacks and present day, because Cassie's kind of entire story is kind of about remembering her past, basically. Anyway, so basically we're going to swap Hikari into the party here, because in the town we need to go to for Cassie's next chapter, we need to get info from a guy. And the issue with that is that basically we need to get info from a guy, and we can't get the info, or rather, we'd have to coerce to get the info, and coerce is slow, so we want to bribe instead. So that's why Hikari's in the party. That route change actually came up with by Fura, who I was going to say is the current world record holder, but I think he's currently 2nd on the leaderboard. They're a Japanese. He's a Japanese runner, and is one of the 2 people that got me into running this category. Funnily enough, both of the people who have gotten me into this category have better times than me. I'm going to blame load times because I'm running this on a laptop, but I'm going to partially blame load times. Obviously this run isn't perfect, but I don't think there's obviously mistakes in this run, but I just don't think there's enough mistakes for this to be world record capable, unfortunately. But I don't really care about record, to be honest. I just want to get a decent PB. I just want to, get something I'm happy with, and this is a run I'm decently happy with, apart from the fact that you know, Alrond was incredibly mean to me, and so was the Meep. And now we're heading to Cassie's final chapter. And basically the guy we need to bribe is right here. Normally, he's in the armor shop. That NPC, I highly recommend if playing casually, get info from that guy. He's normally in the armor shop, but during this chapter, a bunch of the NPCs get shuffled around, like location-wise, so we just get him here. The reason for it is because we get access to one of my favorite items in this entire game. Not here. Here we just buy some concoct materials, because we need to use concoct later. Concoct is Cassie's unique signature ability. We've been using it to prevent enemies to sleep, but we'll be using it for more stuff later. And the thing that getting info from the NPC unlocked is the Royal Guard's Mail, which is an armor piece. I'll just mention there's an armor piece here too. That's the Blessed Vestments, which gives the highest elemental attack of any chest piece in the game. And here's another Empowered Necklace for 1,000 bonus HP. But why the Royal Guard's Mail is so good, which is the item we bought from the shop, is it's an armor piece. It gives pretty high defenses, which is great. But the main reason you get it is because it also gives 750 HP, which is a lot of HP. We will be using both those for the end game of the run, but we'll also be using them earlier too, because we do need some tankiness.
Time to clean up the filth.
For some things, basically.
Cleaning time.
Also, speaking of the end of the run, it's approaching kinda soon. And honestly, I'm a little nervous to commentate the extra battles because they are very fast-paced. So forgive me for when I get to that point if I miss a detail or two. I'll try to touch all the important points, but yeah. Also, forgive me for yapping because this commentary has really just felt like yapping for ages. Apart from the intro, literally none of this is scripted. I am just basically going off of what I know about the run, what I've, and my time actually, making the route for this. So another boss, again, we switched, as usual, switch the night before the boss, you gotta remember to get that, as you lose some time, and then standard boss stuff, evading ward, defend, Average Reckoning. Oh right, there is one thing I haven't mentioned yet. So, after you beat Thron&e's story, you unlock the Disguise EX skill. Casually, it has, some interesting uses, albeit niche. But the thing about Disguise is that in this run, it is a genuine downside to learn it, to get it, simply because it now appears at the bottom of your thief skill list. So if you're trying to use your muscle memory and select Average Reckoning by pressing up on the D-pad. I mean, I'm not running on controller, I'm running on keyboard. Also, in case you can tell, this is I'm commentating over a pre-recorded run here. I'm okay at commentating and running, I just play better when I'm not commentating. And here we're just going to basically put Ochette back in to do the Ochette Cassie cross path, and we're going to equip one of those Royal Guards Mails on. But yeah, the thing about Disguise is that it goes at the bottom of your thing, so if you're trying to select Average Reckoning by pressing up, you'll get Disguise instead. I have lost runs on good pace. I say lost run, I've lost one run on good pace to accidentally misinputting Disguise, and which just straight up it loses a ton of time. So instead of pressing up, you have to press right. Also, that boss is, we're so tough now that we just kill that boss with 3 attacks and doesn't even need to be nighttime. Also, Ochette's XP is precisely timed so that she levels up off of that encounter right there. And the reason that's important is because Ochette got the Royal Guards Mail, and that increases her HP. And when you equip gear in this game that increases your HP, it doesn't apply immediately. You need to heal the character, and when you level up, you get a full heal. So now Ochette's fully healed, and she has the HP she needs for this upcoming fight. Because Ochette's path action... So there are 4 combat path actions in the game: Coerce, Mug, Challenge, and Ochette's, which is Provoke. Provoke is basically like Hikari's challenge, only instead of using skills, you use beasts, which are generally less versatile than skills. In this fight, beasts are a bit slow in this fight in particular, so we have some soul stones to spare, so we can just chuck those instead. There is a backup strat here if you have to use a soul stone early. There's a backup strat that involves summoning Terra, which is the boss we defeated. You can basically, like, instead of using that second soul stone, if you don't have one there, you can basically, instead of using the soul stone, you basically defend, which makes you go first next turn, and then summon Terra to defeat the guy. I think Terra would have actually been faster there had I needed to boost the boost start passive on Ochette at some point, but unfortunately I do not need boost start on Ochette, so Terra is not faster. Actually, I'm not even sure if it would be faster thinking about it. That's like one of the things I was like literally thinking of on the fly, like, wait, is that actually faster? Or would that have been faster? And no, it is not. Anyway, this fight is one of 2 fights on the run that if you get Thron&e to go first, you can actually do a different boss kill. You can actually do a different kill. Unfortunately, Thron&e did not go first, so we do the standard kill. The different kill is we use the surprise attack skill, which is a sword attack from Thief that basically does more damage the earlier in its run it acts. And it's enough to kill that boss, basically. There used to, in the old route, there were 4 bosses you could kill with surprise attack, now there's only 2. But it's still cool if you get it. Unfortunately, this run gets neither of them, so I can't really show off the strat, but it's still cool that it exists. So now this chapter, Ochette's different. Ochette is weird because she has 3 chapter 2's. Every character has 5 total story chapters, it's just the numbering is different. So in Ochette, all 3 of hers are chapter 2's. So 1 for each Beast of Legend. So this is the lowest level one, so there's a provoke fight here, and instead of using a soul stone, we're just going to summon our little frog guy we got. And that just finishes it instantly. In old versions of the route, we would get a soul stone for that fight, and then I realized, hey, wait a minute, we have this frog, does that kill? And yeah, it actually does. Which is the frog appears in 3 fights, it's essential in 2 of them, and that's the 3rd one. I mean, it's a good frog, it does its job, it swings its axe. Though the reason we pick it up is less apparent yet, because we haven't gotten the reason that makes Ochette's beasts so freaking good. They're still great casually, don't get me wrong. Like they offer great utility, at least like I'm saying for like the early mid game, which is what Ochette is kind of in right now. Like the rest of the characters are very much end game, but Ochette is kind of early mid game right now. But for early mid game, the beasts are kind of like casually they're great, but like in the speed they're kind of meh right now, just because we haven't gotten the one tool that makes them truly busted. And we get that from beating Ochette's final chapter right here. This is the final character story chapter. We'll still have 1 crossed path after this, but and that'll be our last character story chapter of the run, which is pretty neat. One thing to note in this chapter is there will be some fights against some enemies, and it is imperative that you switch it to night before these fights. So you either switch where I do here, so right before the screen transition, or switch here. Because if you don't switch it, killing these fights becomes a lot more awkward. I think it's still possible. Like I think the backup strat is to use neighbors, which I think should kill. But I don't actually know for sure because I've never tested.
Well. Easy. All tidied up.
I think of all the characters in this run, Ochette finishes the run at the lowest level, but that doesn't mean she gets done the dirtiest. I think in terms of characters that get done the dirtiest, like they don't get to show off their strengths in this run, I think top 3 is, in this order, Oswald, Agnia, Ochette. Agnia, it's mainly just because we don't give her step ahead, so she doesn't even get a friggin' turn until the end game. But in the end game, she gets to do cool stuff. Oswald barely gets to use his skull or stuff at all, which is a little lame. Oswald can actually do some pretty great damage when you set him up right, but we just don't give him the levels and the gear for that, so he kind of just becomes a budget version of whatever his sub-job is, basically. And Ochette gets to do cool things with her beasts, basically, in this run. Ochette's also, I think, fun trivia fact, the only character in this run where we never give them a sub-job. Also, on this screen, we switch it to night here, because we actually need to take a battle, because the battles in this area, or during this story part, are, you cannot run from them. You have to kill them. So we kill them, we kill it real quick, and we pick up the Tornado Bow from this chest. That completes our trifecta of wind-boosting weapons. So, I've mentioned, like, the Giant's Club boosts physical attacks, so we have attacks, we now have weapons that'll boost wind damage. And, so we have three of them. We have the Tornado Glaive we grabbed at the same time as the Fang of Ferocity, all the way back, like, when we did the Tyranno Drake. Then we have the Moon Eater from Lost Seed, and then the Tornado Bow from here. And that'll be used to get a pretty significant wind damage boost. So
sorry.
If you're familiar with the damage strats of this game, you probably know what I'm going to be using when I mention wind. But of course, I'll explain it when we get to that.
Ready?
Let's agree that
Anyway, this boss is pretty simple. You just evading more neighbors record. And bada bing, bada boom. Fight over. Okay, so now we've gotten the thing that makes Ochette's beasts truly broken. So this is her EX skill called Provoke Beasts, and it basically lets you summon multiple beasts in a turn. Up to 6 of them. So you can just... That frog you've seen hits with an axe twice? Yeah, you can just hit with an axe 12 times in a turn, which is kind of ridiculous. And that isn't even like scratching the surface of what you can do with the beasts. But it's what we're going to do with it in this run. We're going to hit with an axe 12 times. I do find it funny that they nerfed the double tomahawk from Octopath 1. In Octopath 1, the double tomahawk... Also, I literally ran the complete wrong direction there. Anyway. The double tomahawk from Octopath 1 doubled the amount of attacks you did with it, and in this game it just adds 1 to the number of attacks. And then they make Ochette, who can, like, do double tomahawk for every weapon type and better. Yeah, I don't know. Then again, buffing... The devs also buffed hired help, which is certainly a decision of all time. Anyway, this is a provoke fight. Also, I walked into the... I didn't provoke. Anyway. This fight strat is, we just use Mahina here to chip some shields. Oh yeah, the owl's name's Mahina. Say hi to Mahina. And, then we use Glacius, which is one of the bosses we captured, and then just finish off with a Shadow Soulstone March. If you've been wondering where all these Shadow Soulstones are actually coming from, the required fights in Oswald's final chapter actually just drop them, guaranteed, so you get 3 Shadow Soulstone Marches just by playing the game, so we just have them for free. This chapter is also kind of angsty, which is a thing. And it's also our last story chapter before we can start the final sequence that'll go up to the final boss.
Why didn't you save him, Miss Cassie?
And now this is one of the 2 fights where if Thron&e goes first, you can kill with surprise attack. I did not get the good RNG, so
very well.
Thron&e killed with Vapors instead.
All tidied up.
Oh right, I kind of forgot to mention. So before we came here, we got an item called we went and did a quest, and the quest gave an item called Alpione's Amulet. Alpione's Amulet basically gives you a damage boost It gives you a bigger damage boost. Oh, also, we're stealing the battle-tested staff here. It's a 65% chance at Throne A level 83, which is ridiculous. Why isn't it 100%? Anyway, Alpione's Amulet will give you a bigger damage boost the less HP you have. At 1 health, it gives you times 3 damage. Which, times 3 is a lot, and that's what we have the Forbidden Elixirs for. It'll let us set to 1 HP when we want, and then we can do times 3 damage, which is very useful. So now we've started the final sequence of the run. Or the final kind of sequence of the story. If this was an any % run, this would be the kind of the last segment of the run, basically. It's not a quick segment, but it's a thing there. Also, as you might notice, I've been playing pretty well because I've golded the last 4 splits. If you are relatively new to speedrunning, a gold split means that is the best time I've ever gotten on that particular segment of the run. So that is the fastest I've ever done that segment. It doesn't mean I'm necessarily on the best pace I've ever been on, it just means that's the fastest I've ever done that segment. And the reason I gold so many late splits is because I don't get to the late game too much when I do runs. I'm usually going to reset. And now we do a job menu here. This is a bit sloppy. Yeah, whatever. So now the cat's kind of out of the bag. We're doing Cassie as one of our damage dealers for the end game. So we're going to learn... This is where... Cassie is one that gets lasting memory. Oswald's going to learn some survivability skills because he's going to become a tank. I forgot, and then come back. Again, not a clean menu. Hikari is going to learn warrior skills, so Hikari will be one of our damage dealers for endgame, so it's going to be Hikari and Cassie. Agnia is going to learn the Dancer Divine skill. The thing is, she won't actually use it. I'll mention the reason she learns it, but she won't actually use it. Right now I actually have enough JP for the Cleric Divine skill on Throne A, but I didn't actually learn it because it's not called for on the route, because no one needed enough. It also, I think, saves time. I think it saves time to delay it. I could be wrong, though. Anyway, so we're now equipping our endgame support skill loadouts on Cassie, Throne A, and Hikari. Hikari and Cassie were basically kitting out with endgame damage skill with basically all the damage they could want. And also we forgot to equip Step Ahead on Agnia. That was a mistake by me. And Throne A equipped full power as a support skill, so now she gets a free late in every battle, which means I can start at every battle with 2 turns if I want. Originally, in the older versions of the route, I still had the free latent power refill from the Dulcinea fight, so I actually would delay that menu until after the Grotesque Monster fight, which is our next boss. But because we need to use the latent power on Kaminos' final boss, it's, we need to do it early. Which is still fine, it barely loses any time. And then, again, these bosses still haven't kind of reached the point of where we are. Like, optimized loadouts will just obliterate any amount of the story bosses in this game. But, optimized loadouts aren't enough on the final, like, the extra battles. So we give Throne A BP item to fill BP, and then we can kill the boss with latent power, Aber's Reckoning, and Mystical Staff.
I take what I want.
We could have used HP Thief instead of Mystical Staff there, but we didn't need to. But Mystical Staff is faster to select, basically. Also, this part's another bit of downtime, so I'm going to take a little break. We're going to basically just walk over to the next area we need to go, because the format of this final chapter is basically you need to go and light the 4 flames. So we're just going to walk over to collect these flames. So while we're walking over to collect this flame, I'm just going to take a slight break. I'll be back.
What to do?
The hunt is on.
Here I go.
Was I?
The hunt is on.
Oh dear.
Okay, I'm back just in time.
Time to clean up the filth. My turn.
Basically, we're just gonna go light the flame here. Each flame needs like a different combination of characters to light it, so we put the characters in our party and we do that. And after lighting the flame, we're going to head to Wellgrove, do kind of our last errand of the run. No idea why I couldn't find Wellgrove there. So we're first going to sell a bunch of items. So we're selling the Azuki porridge. I realized, oh hey, I don't need that. I should sell that, because it'll screw up my menus later. But, then we just sell the weapons we're not going to need for money. You only need, I think, 235. Yeah, you need 235,000 after selling there. I had 260,000 thanks to the Kate and some other things. So, yeah. And now this is the reason we learned the Dancer Divine skill, because you need to have that to get two Dancer licenses. One mechanic in this game is you can actually get multiple of a sub-job, which lets you equip that sub-job on more than one character at once. The final fight of this run does need multiple characters sub-job as Dancer, so we need to grab the Dancer. Well, technically you don't need it, it just, you have a 16% chance to lose if you lose that fight if you don't get if you don't get the second Dancer. So it saves time to skip it. It's a 3-hour run, and I'd rather not lose I'd rather not lose a run to the final fight of the game. Because if it just doesn't, if you get the bad turner RNG without the Dancer, if you get the bad turner RNG with the Dancers, you're fine. If you get it without the second Dancer, it just doesn't work, and you just have to take the death and reset the fight. Now we just again swap in the required characters, Oswald Partitio this time, and then click the mirror. Now we're gonna go fight a boss. The reason I'm losing time here is because I think it's because I did some of the support skill menu early. I think I normally do all of the support skill menu after this fight. But yeah, this boss is again pretty similar to Grotesque Monster. You can just kill with Aber's Reckoning and some chip from another skill. I say some chip, and then Surprise Attack does 50k. And yes, you need it to do 50k, because the boss is 150k health. But yeah, you can use... It's technically... You get more damage if you use Surprise Attack first, and then Aber's. But in my case, I know that if you use Surprise Attack second, it's still enough damage to kill. So, yeah.
Hey, a customer. Bring it on.
And then this is a pretty complicated menu. Basically, I'm giving everyone their endgame equipment. And as you might notice, I just unequipped Thron&e's gear, because she will not be doing physical damage anymore. That'll be Hikari's job. Also, unequipping that Dazzling Tiara of Hikari is very important, because I need to give that item to Partitio later in the run. I'm equipping Fang of Ferocity and Alpione's Amulet on Cassie, because she's my other damage dealer. And then Empowering Bracelet for some extra HP on Partitio, because he'll need that later. Now I give Oswald all my Nourishing Nuts to make him a very, very tanky guy. And now I give Cassie Fortifying Nuts to buff his... Hikari Fortifying Nuts to buff his physical attack. And that is the final menu, or second to last menu, but it's the last menu before the final boss. And now you get to see how Hikari and Cassie strats work, basically. You know how Thron&e does damage, now you get to see how Hikari and Cassie do damage. It's a little sneak peek of what the extra battles are going to be. Though not quite. I'm not going to be using the 1 HP strat on Cassie quite yet, because she does have Alpione's Amulet after all, but she doesn't need it yet. Also, banger theme before that boss, and then it goes away, because there's just not... whatever. My favorite song of the game, and it plays for like 10 seconds gameplay. And no, it does not play for a longer period of time casually. Anyway, so you give Hikari an item to buff his BP. So, Baiting Warp here actually lets you skip the boss's second phase. So there's normally a second phase where your up to 4 characters have to fight it. But if you do enough damage and if you use a Baiting Warp, you can skip that second phase and go straight to the third phase. Third phase is now all 8 characters at once, and you can switch between the 2 parties all you want, which is very, 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 very cool. So, this fight's pretty quick, so we're going to defend. Cassie's going to use the first of her spicy jerkies on herself. Ochette's going to use her Howl latent power, which removes 1 shield from the enemy and debuffs their defenses, both physical and elemental defense. Partitio will use higher health beastlings to break with these hands. One of the mechanics of this fight is when you destroy the hands, they will debuff your party, or debuff the active party. So what we're going to do is we're going to use Cassie, we're going to use Concoct, and do pretty high wind damage. And we'll get crazy amounts of debuffs right here. And then we'll just let the boss kill us. That attack hits everyone, and yes, Temenos is supposed to die. So basically, this part we have intentionally lose half the party, and now we just finish off the boss here. One thing you might have... I'll mention it later. So Hikari here will do just enough damage to kill, and that was what Hikari needed latent for, by the way, this fight. Or Hikari used his latent refill from teaching him. And there goes the fight. I almost just pressed the button to split off of instinct. But how cooked am I? Jeez. Now, this segment of the run is the last menu. So, to do it, we unequip Ochette's gear, give Partitio his gear, and Temenos his final gear. The reason Temenos needs gear, so Partitio needs gear to be tanky, Temenos needs gear to have a specific speed stat, because when we used... I didn't mention what Agnia's Late did. And we're going to learn skills on characters, but Agnia's Late basically makes everything AoE. Like, it makes your next skill do an AoE, basically. And with Springy Boots, which is the adventure skill that makes them go first, if everyone has Springy Boots, the party order is actually... The turn order is actually fully determined by speed. So by giving Temenos speed equipment, we basically can ensure he goes when we want him to go in the turn order. And now we're just equipping Oswald's survivability skills that we got him. And we're equipping Partitio's survivability skills here too. And just one last party order, so making our extra battles party. Or at least the party for the first 2 extra battles, we'll be switching later, and then we give Cassie all of our magic nuts, which will get her elemental attack to, I think, 966. So what we're just going to do real quick is we're going to hire a cleric with Partitio. This is a very powerful battle summon, and we'll use that. And then right before we do the extra battles, all we need to do is just quickly just save the game. And now that we've saved the game, we can actually go start the extra battles. Forgive me if I miss anything during this commentary, but I should be able to get everything. Okay. These are pretty fast-paced, so let's go. So these first two fights are pretty similar to one another. So, first fight,
Oh, sacred one.
there's a lot of new skills here. So first one, we're going to use Doter's Charity from Partitio to make all Throne's items affect the entire party.
It's my turn.
Agnia Windy Refrain, which makes the entire party act first next turn. Throning will use her Latent, refill BP with a Reinforcing Jam, and then Aelfric's Blessing, which will give an additional action at the end of the turn for 3 turns. So I use that additional action immediately to Aelfric's Blessing again on Agnia. And then thanks to Doter's, I can Forbidden Elixir and hit everyone, so everyone's now at 1 HP and now have BP for free too. So I can use Hired Help Beastlings to break all the shields. This skill is goated in this fight, if you casually, by the way. Even casually, it's do this fight. Anyway, I'm actually using Max Boost Beastlings here because I need the extra chip damage, basically. And now, I can basically use Cassie. Forget Me Do removes the buffs they have, the defense buff they have, and then you hit the damage items to deal damage. I debuff their defense with Throne, and I use Throne's Latent to cast BP as well, and I can AoE them down with Cassie. So because I actually attacked them when they were broken, I actually didn't need all 3 hits. I only needed 2, but if you don't get that turn order, it still kills with the setup I just did, basically. But again, Hired Up Beastlings. Throne will use an item on Cassie because she still needs items, still needs BP. And then again, Beastlings will break, Cassie will kill, basically.
Only pain. This
So the most tight damage range in the fight, and this is why Cassie needs all those magic nuts that she got, is Tressa. Because Tressa buffs her defense every time you break her.
forgive me.
You basically just need extra oomph to kill her, basically. Now, second fight is kind of the same, but there's a reason the split is named Honnet Please. Honnet's the third from the top. So the first two turns are literally the same, so I'm just going to skip that and talk about Honnet. So basically, Honnet has a passive so there's a passive from Octopath that gives you a bonus chance it gives you basically a chance to get a free turn at the end of every free action at the end of every turn, and they actually gave Honnet this ability in this fight, and so if she gets the extra turn on you, it's very, very likely that you just have to reset the turn. Fortunately, I think it's like, I don't know the exact odds, probably around 1 in 10, but I didn't get it here, so thank God. But yeah, again, same as last fight, just break with Beastlings. I did use an extra Beastling here, I did not need to use 3 here. I didn't need to use 4, I just needed to use 3. And then, instead of using double hit Concoct first time, I'm using single hit Concoct. Again, I'm acting when it's broken, but I don't actually need to act at that point to win. But then this is where the fight changes. So instead of refilling Cassie's BP here, I'm actually going to use Throne's Latent on the following turn. Also, yeah, I kind of big gloss over the fact that yes, they literally revive to full for free halfway through the fight. Anyway, so I used Decaying Dragon's Essences because Primrose has really high evasion, so Primrose is the topmost enemy. And she has high evasion in this phase, so Hired Help Beastlings isn't actually that reliable at breaking her. But Decaying Dragon's Essences won't miss, so there you go. That's how I just avoid that part. They're also faster, because it's not like the damage is particularly tight. Anyway, so for this next fight, I'm going to be putting Hikari in. It's a 2-phase fight. Each party, so basically the current party will come to phase 1, and then the inactive party comes to phase 2. Fun fact, in the original version of this fight, Throne actually was using the damage here, but Hikari saves 20 seconds, so we'll do that instead. Anyway, so this fight is V-Day, but way harder. So, basically, I use Hienka here to get an extra action in a turn, because the reason I need to do Throne just needs to defend it. But the reason I need to do that is simply because once I break and debuff them with Partitio and Ochette here, and then have all the setup I need to do, all the chip damage I need to put there. So the boss will set me to 1 HP, and also clear on my BP, but Thron&e's latent can still get me BP. And the main mechanic of this fight, when those tentacles die, they explode damage. So I'm using Partitio here. This NPC that I got basically gives me, on each summon, it gives me 2 stacks of a buff that negates any damage I take. So, since there's 4 tentacles, and that's 4 explosions, I can negate all 4 hits with 2 summons. And Ochette healed Hikari with an item, so now peak performance is active. And yeah, of course he has BP now too. But yeah, you'll see how much damage these do second phase, because you won't have access to the NPC. Also, one caveat if you're doing this fight for yourself, don't use Hienka. So if you get good turnover on the first turn and the boss is broken, okay, I'm just buffing Hikari's attack, debuffing the boss's defense. But basically on the first turn, if the boss is already broken and debuffed, don't use Hienka. You can just straight up go for the Shinju, or not the Shinju, the Divine Dual Edge. But yeah, I'm just chipping the Shinju and then buffing Hikari's latent with recruitment. The other caveat if you're doing this fight casually, if you're doing this fight for yourself, is you cannot Hienka the same target twice, because then it will die, explode, and kill you. But yeah, Shinju, Manjigiri with 2 BP, and Hienka with 3 BP. I don't think I really explained too much what Hienka does, but it basically gives you an extra action, similar to Antifrix. But, okay, this phase is pretty complicated, because it can pretty much vary due to turn order, but no matter what turn order you get, you always have a winnable fight here. But basically, this is what the Lilies of Light are for, because sometimes Cassie will have to break. You need to break the top 2 tentacles. They will always act last this turn, so you're never in danger of them attacking you if you can break them before they go. So we basically need to break them before they go, basically. And I said Aelfrix to cast. So there's 2 tentacles still up. One of them will debuff me, and the other is the one that just attacked, which does Tentacle Dash, which sets a character to 1 HP. And basically we use the taunt on Cassie, so now that serves a dual purpose. 1, it makes sure Oswald doesn't get hit, and 2, it makes sure Cassie gets set to 1 HP. Pair of Help Thespians here overrides because it applies multiple instances of attack up, it overrides the attack debuff I get and changes it to an attack buff. I use Cassie to clear the attack buffs, the defense buffs that they've been given, and then I can use Cassie again to just kill. Now you'll see how much damage the tentacle explosions do. Oswald is taking all 4 of these. So Oswald now going to use the Almighty Olive. The boss actually won't do any actions during this phase of the fight. It just basically is a countdown. That's the gimmick. Basically, you need to kill this boss. I think there's a countdown, and if it counts down to 0, you get AoE'd and die instantly, basically. So Oswald is, yeah, only 2 turns left to the end. And then we got good turnover here, so we can kill this turn. If we get bad turnover, we can't actually kill this turn. We have to kill this turn. Now we're going for the very last bite of the run. This bite is very complicated, so forgive me if I miss any minor nuances. Basically, we're switching jobs, so Agnia Inventor, Partitio Dancer, and Thron&e Warrior. And we're also unequipping Oswald's Rise again, because we need him to die at some point, and giving Hikari boost start. And here we go. So basically the thing about this fight is these 2 hands, basically one of them will reflect all magic attacks, the other will dodge and counter all physical attacks. So I need a physical and a magic damage dealer to kill him. Notably, they won't actually do it if they're broken, but during this first part, I'm not actually breaking. So I'm buffing Hikari's attack, or Cassie's attack. I'm setting her to 1 HP, buffing Hikari's attack, and Windy Refrain, so I go first next turn. Now time to kill the tentacles. This is an extremely tight range with Hikari here to kill with Shinju. I get countered, but it doesn't actually matter. It still works. The rest of the fight still works, even without peak performance on Hikari. Also, every time I'm doing damage with Cassie, I'm having to switch to Concoct, or I'm having to switch to my staff, because for whatever reason, Concoct only gets a damage boost if you, like, you only get a damage boost from it. You only can get the effect of a weapon if you're holding it when you're using Concoct. So since the staff is what's giving me all my elemental attack, I have to switch to it. Anyway, so basically, this part of the fight was really fucking complicated to figure out. And basically what I'm doing is foreign assassins will heal me, and the boss is weak to dagger. So I can basically cycle foreign assassins to break the boss repeatedly while using Oswald's Stimulate, which is a skill that pushes you up in the turn order to make sure Partitio acts first. And then because of Partitio's latent, I can basically just keep that train going long enough to get it low enough to break to a Decaying Dragon's Essence. And the reason I'm delaying a turn to break with the Decaying Dragon's Essence is because now I have a free turn of Partitio, and this lets me debuff the boss than Ancient Curse Talisman. So now I can use Hikari. Hikari's going to do 200,000 damage, that's all he needs to do here. I call it chip damage, but it really isn't. Cassie's doing 400k, she's our main damage dealer. And did I mention this phase has 1 million health? Partitio buffs Cassie, which will last to the end of the fight, thanks to Cassie buffs, she dies. Now that gets the boss low enough, so that triggers. Once you get the boss below half, it'll trigger the next phase. So I get set to 1 HP. I don't want to die yet, so I switch parties. Now I have to break one of the hands, because now the hands actually sentence my characters to the Shadow Realm this time. So I can just break one, so I'm basically using Temenos and Thron&e to break the hand. And I'm using Springy Boots to do the thing that I was mentioning, where my turn orders are now set, and also, I get to act first, which is key. So on this turn I can actually stimulate if Cassie is last, which will guarantee that I have someone to take full shields off the boss with a Dragon's Essence, and I'm about to abuse a exploit with this boss's AI. Basically, the thing about this boss is that when one of the parties dies, it will actually skip directly to the next turn. So what this basically means is I can just prevent the boss from doing stuff, like random stuff, and kill him. So I basically just skip the boss's turn, and now I can debuff and break the boss. I have 10 to survive everyone. This will get back to 1 HP, which weird glitch here, by the way. I've seen that a few times. Basically just giving Cassie VP. Ochette will use the frog for the last time, shout out to the frog, my goat, and just take 12 shields off. That'll break the boss. And if you thought 1 million HP is enough, there's a second phase with 800k. And I stimulate here, not because it's required. It's required if Cassie's last, but Cassie is not last. It just makes it so that my next actions are what I'm used to doing. But regardless of what turn order you get, you always win in this fight. Which is very, very nice. And now this is the fate of the lightning I was talking about. And I think theoretically you can have up to 5 deaths in this phase. But so Ochette's down. There's actually a separate variant to the fight if Ochette's alive, but anyway, aggressive slash, Thron&e. The reason it matters if Ochette's alive is because the boss has a darkness mechanic that does damage to you after every action, and it also drains your SP, and since Ochette gets drained, anyway. Whatever, Agnia Windy Refrain ensures that Ochette gets put before the boss, because she gets put in a random spot when she gets revived. But yeah, Ochette can summon the beast. This is the one time that if you pick the physical beast, it can miss. I use aggressive slash again, hit 3 times, use my Fire Soul Stone to reveal the fire weakness in case Ochette didn't do that. Then Elfric's Blessing on Cassie because of the damage, and then Elemental Bomb Model. It hits 1 time for each weakness. It hits each weakness basically that revealed. It hits 8 times, which is very, very nice. Since Cassie still has Springy Boots, thanks to Lasting Memory, she acts first here, breaks the boss. Then I can just give her a bit of elixir, and Cassie has all she needs to finish the fight for me. And that is how I beat the hardest bosses in Octopath Traveler 2 in a little over 3 hours. This Cassie damage is actually insane.
Forgive me.
Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned a few things about the run.